We'll now call to order the January 19th, 2016 Richmond Public School Board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Will the board members from present please respond? Ms. Gray? Here. Mr. Bourne?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor? Mrs. Harris Muhammad? Dr. Jones? Mrs. Pinkett? Mrs. Larson? And Mr. Cole? You do not have a quorum, Mr. Chair, so this is an informal meeting until a few more board members arrive.
Thank you.
The next item is motion 03, pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
And we will ask our student representative to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
The next item is item 2, your recognitions.
Before we get there, is there anyone here who needs interpretive services?
Si alguien necesita intérprete en español, por favor, levante su mano. Gracias.
Our first recognitions are for the student representatives for the month of December. Ms. China Branch, if she's present, will she come forward? And if parents or family members are present, will they please stand and be recognized?
At this time, we'd like to recognize Ms. China Branch, our December student representative, for serving in the month of December and representing RPS in such a well and outstanding fashion. For the month of January, from Thomas Jefferson High School, we'd like to present to Amanda Woodson a certificate of appreciation for being a student representative in the month of January.
Our next recognitions are the Safe School Month Contest winners. Ms. Lindenfeld is coming forward.
Good evening, school board members and superintendent Benton and guests. I'm Carrie Lindenfeld, safety trainer for the Department of Safety and Security. Richmond Public Schools, joined by Chief Mallory, Safety and Security, Timothy Mallory. Charlotte Hare, she's the president of the REA. And communities in school, we don't have a representative here with them, for them. Safe Schools Month is recognized annually during the month of October. It began with a proclamation from the school board declaring October as Safe Schools Month. There were a series of activities throughout the month, including a school-wide poster and writing and a PSA this year contest. The awards tonight are for the winning entries in this contest. The theme for the contest was building a better district and supporting safer schools with the focus on school safety. We know that the entries reflected on making the district better by eliminating bullying. The writing and PSA competitions were judged by the Richmond Education Association's representatives. So let's get started with the awards. I must say that there are only two. There are only two winners that are here, but I do want to at least say their name. Shantanique Brown. Are you here?
She's here.
All right. She's a 12th grade student from George Wythe High School. Our next person is Ruth Grace at Topeka, and she's not here, I don't believe.
She's here.
She's here? All right, come on up. 7th grade George Wythe student. And then our third student is actually, our third place student is actually at a track meet, I believe. So he's not here tonight, and that's Travis Tremute. He's a 12th grade student from George Wythe. Now, congratulations, good. All right, in the writing category for 6th through 8th grade, our first place and only winner is Heaven Canaday. She's in 6th grade from Bouchard Middle School. All right. Our PSA audio and visual category for 9th through 12th grade, Ariane Johnson won first place. Is Ariane here? Okay, she's not here. So she won first place in the PSA audio visual category. Now, I understand that there may be 2 others who assisted who are here, and they are Mahogany Griffin and Shakir Holland. Are they here? No. Okay. All right, that concludes our presentation. Oh, wait a minute. I can't forget my teachers. I'm sorry, I can't forget my teachers. If they could please come up, Lizette Kimbrough and Angela Kennedy. All right, and yeah, I want to read them. For guidance and instruction to your students during the October 2015 Safe Schools Month, your commitment to helping children with their contest entries is a worthy and outstanding contribution to the school and community, building a better district and supporting safe schools. Thank you so much. And that concludes our presentation.
Let the record reflect we've been joined by Mrs. PPS.
At this time, I'd like to invite the principal from Carver Elementary School, Ms. Yates, to come forward and join Mr. Moore. Any other representatives that are here with you from Yates? Yates from Carver. Whoa! Okay, I think you just have representation. You all can keep standing. At this time, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the students, staff, and administration from Carver Elementary School for being recognized as a 2016 highly distinguished Title I school, which means that they were recognized for exceeding all state and federal accountability benchmarks for 2 consecutive years, and for achieving an average pass rate in English and mathematics at or above the 85th percentile. I'm going to step out on a limb and try to do it from memory, but if I remember correctly, and Dr. Yates can correct me, I believe the school had a 90% pass rate or above in all of the areas on the state assessment. So we want to tell people that it was actually well above the requirement for the state. So 90% or above pass rate in all areas. Your second certificate is from the school board, directly from the school board of the City of Richmond, a certificate of recognition for George W. Carver Elementary School for being selected to receive the 2015-2016 Title I Highly Distinguished School Award.
Thank you, Carver. It's because of you all. Give yourselves a round of
Please keep standing. Mr. Bourne, in my old age, had to remind me. Y'all supposed to see my old. Come on. I do want to announce that you all probably know this, but to the audience, the school is also being nominated.
I didn't tell them that, so they're gonna know now.
Oh, okay, well, it's out there. Well, I can take, you sure?
Yes.
Okay. You're being nominated by Virginia Department of Ed for the National Blue Ribbon Award.
The next item is item 3, your legislative item 3.01, to receive the legislative update.
Thank you. I think we have our government affairs experts with us. The whole team can come up. They're here.
Good evening. I'm James Pickerel with Commonwealth Strategy Group. We're very excited to have been awarded the government relations contract for Richmond Public Schools. We are the operating partners of Commonwealth Strategy Group. We're right down the road here on 8th Street. We're a full-service government relations firm. I'm a partner of Ms. Amy Cyber, who will be assisting me with your issues, and Mr. Kyle Whitehead. And so I'd ask the clerk to distribute a couple of things. One is a packet that sort of gives our biographies and what our group does and who some of our clients are. The second thing is a bill list that we've compiled of legislation that we think you're going to have an interest in. You can see it's very extensive. We have, to try to be helpful, categorized the pieces of legislation into some broad buckets. You'll see they're listed out: charter schools, curriculum, general finances, student issues, school board issues, etc. As I'm sure you know, the General Assembly is now in its first full week, its official second week of operations. Committees are going, subcommittees are going, and so if the school board could review the bill list, give us some priorities, that would be helpful as we assist you in assisting Richmond Public Schools. Also, as I'm sure you know, this is a budget year. We have several big things that are happening in the budget that relate to public education. Virginia Preschool Initiative is being tweaked, as is the deposit index, and so we're going to have to rely on you for some guidance in those areas also. We are happy to answer any questions that you guys might have or receive any guidance that you might want to give us.
Thank you, James. Board members, as you know, I sent around an email copy of the board list, so hopefully you've had a little bit of time to look at it. And over the next couple of days, if you'll email sort of any ones that really stick out as either something we've got to fight hard against or fight hard for. As we all know, these things move very quickly, and so we don't want the train to leave the station without us. I think we've engaged some pretty competent and qualified government affairs folks, Mr. Whitehead notwithstanding. No, I mean, these people have been around the General Assembly for a long time, so they'll have their ear to the ground and be able to keep us up to speed. They have asked me to make sure at least one or two of us are available for a rapid response or input, perhaps attendance at one of the committee meetings to voice Richmond's perspective or position on issues. So I hope that everybody would make themselves available to do that. I've connected them with the people that know the real nuts and bolts behind the budget. So, having said all that, are there any questions or thoughts? Ms. Gray.
Just a quick question. Who's the Sturtevant guy that's filed all these education bills?
You might be familiar with Mr. Bill Sturtevant.
I'm just surprised that all the bills he put forward in his first.
He has an extensive education package.
Yeah.
Thoughts, comments, concerns? Taylor, Ms. Juliet? you will. I know you will.
Thank you for asking.
One of you actually referenced one of the big sensitive items that our team has been engaged in, the changes in BPI. As it's coming forward, creates challenges for us. And we welcome, if you need, you'd like the opportunity to have to sit down with Ms. Kane and our team to outline the things that we have shared with DOE and Secretary Dan regarding the changes in impact. So that help you get in front of, because one of the concerns we have, as Mr. Moore said, is they come up real fast and they get ready to pull the trigger. And you want to make sure you have what you have to respond. When in direct contact with someone who's a practitioner, they're real fast, when they respond to a question.
We would be happy to do that, Dr. Beth.
Thank you guys so much for doing this for us and coming here tonight. And we'll see you around.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let the record reflect you've been joined by Ms. Lawson and Ms. Schoolhome. And we can briefly go back to the record.
Sure, there was not a forum at the time we started, so there is one now. And Madam Clerk, are there any amendments to the agenda?
I have one, and that's just to add a set of minutes to January the 11th, 2016 minutes that were sent to you as well as posted on board docs.
Any objections to adding the January 11th minutes for approval to the agenda? Is there a motion?
All in favor for adding the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed, any extensions? The agenda has been adopted as presented.
Next item, Madam
The
Clerk.
next item is item 4, the board vacancy 401, interview potential candidates for vacant school board seat.
Okay. I don't know, are there any candidates for the school board vacancy in the room right now? And in order to be fair to all candidates, we're going to sort of separate them while the questions are being asked and answered. It's really not fair for the first candidate to have to answer the questions and allow the other candidates to hear the responses. And so we will separate all the candidates at the time of the interview. The interviews will be done publicly in open session, so the audience will be able to hear the answers, hear the questions, see the interaction. As always, our meetings are videotaped and then put on board docs for later viewing pleasure. Because we've had such a great interest in this vacancy, we had 10 candidates apply, 10 qualified candidates. We have to be respectful of time, and our time, your time, and be efficient and effective and move through this process. So because there are 5 of us here, we're going to ask each candidate 5 questions, the same 5 questions each candidate will get. And they will have just about 2 minutes to answer each question. Obviously, we'll be respectful and reasonable in that, but we won't allow a candidate to answer a question in 7 minutes rather than 2 minutes. And so, I think that's it. Have I missed anything? Okay, and each board member should have a packet with each candidate's name on it and the questions that will be asked. And spaces for us to take notes and score. And so, with the questions.
Maybe you're going to explain it.
With the questions? The questions, so how we're going to do this is, we're going to start with Ms. Gray. She's going to take number 1. Ms. Larson's going to take number 2. Ms. Taylor will take number 3. Ms. McNeil will take number 4, and I'll take number 5. It'll be the same way for each candidate. Ms. McNeil.
Did the candidates get these questions in advance?
No, ma'am. I don't know about you. I've never been on a job interview where they gave me the questions before I went in. Any other questions? All right. The first candidate is Mr. Boyer. J.E. Dawson Boyer. Good evening, Mr. Boyer.
Good evening, how are you?
Good. Thank you for putting yourself forward for the vacancy of the first district in the school board of Richmond. A little bit about how this is going to work. Each candidate is going to be given the same 5 questions. You're going to have about 2 minutes to answer each question. If you're, if you're a little bit over the time, we'll go ahead and let you finish a thought, but we don't want a 2-minute answer to turn into a 5-minute answer or a 7-minute answer. We'll be pretty strict with that, obviously within reason. So unless you have any sort of preliminary questions, we can go ahead and get started.
I'm ready.
All right. So why don't you take about 60 seconds and just sort of give us a very brief overview, then we'll jump right into the questions.
My name is Dawson Boyer. I'm a resident of the city of Richmond. And over the last, I've been a resident for 7 years. And over the last 7 years, I've really gotten involved in different facets of the community. Mostly geared towards the school system. And for me, I just see schools as such a great opportunity for students to have a place to help them achieve their goals and be a safe haven for them. And it's just really, stirred up a passion in me to want to get involved and play more of a part with regards to the school system here in Richmond. And previous before that, I attended Virginia Military Institute. I worked at Newmarket Corporation downtown, and my family and I own a small business in the city of Richmond.
Okay. Ms. Gray?
How do you see the role of this board as a body and as an individual member?
Yeah, as a body, I think the school board, has done a great job in the last few years, really creating an environment to help improve the schools. And I think collectively, we're all here, for the whole city of Richmond school system. And it's really the work of the board to, drive initiatives and figure out ways to solve the problems we have. As an individual, I just see myself being a team player in that goal. Because for me personally, although I'd be representing the first district, I really see it as a holistic approach because it's the whole school system that needs to achieve and succeed, and not just one district.
Hi, good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
And so, do you mean more specifically when there's multiple players involved in finding a solution?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just a problem and how you solved it.
Sure. So I'll use our family business, for instance. So we're kind of in a similar situation. We started in 2008, which wasn't a great time to start a small business, but we took on the challenge. And so for us early on, a lot of it was financially, how do we make this work? How do we manage payroll is your #1 expense, so you need to have enough employees to serve your customers so you don't lose them, but you also need to manage that. And so that was kind of part of my, my role within the family structure of running this business was, unofficially the treasurer, if you will, in helping solve this issue. So I feel like a lot of it for me was getting involved myself and getting my hands dirty and making sacrifices because, if I was working, I wasn't getting paid, but it also, for the greater cause, helped us get through. And then it was also just working with the employees and gaining their flexibility and working with the family and really trying to inspire and create this team atmosphere.
Thank you.
How are you?
What do you see as your top priority for Richmond Public Schools? And then secondly, what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
I think I go back to, I think for me, the #1 priority is creating an environment where students feel like they can come, have a safe learning environment, and achieve their goals. And so, I think, as we all know and we've seen, there's a big undertaking that needs to take place with the condition of the actual facilities. I'm also on a nonprofit, and it's called the TJ Vikings Fund. It's a 501c3. So kind of what we've done there is, 3 or 4 years ago, the weight room was actually condemned by the city. And, the sign out in front of Thomas Jefferson High School was being held together by giant zip ties. And so we tried to identify ways that we could help inspire the students and show them that, we cared and wanted them to achieve. Because through our small family business, we have an employee from TJ, and this was about 6 years ago, and I know things have drastically changed for the better since then. But kind of his feedback was, sometimes it doesn't feel like anyone cares about us. And so that's kind of going back to the TJ Vikings Fund. We tried to identify those situations where we could help boost morale and create that environment that's conducive to academic athletics and the arts and science.
Could you describe the strongest assets you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness?
So my youngest brother is mentally handicapped, and he was born normal, if you will, and then he had a vaccination that led to him being severely handicapped with epilepsy. So I think one impact this has had on my life is, me noticing and seeing people who are overlooked and underserved. And, my brother's situation, he's nonverbal, he requires 24/7 care, but he still gets out in the public a lot. And I've seen the benefits of something like ARC, which is a program and a place where he can go. And I think just that drive and that need that I've seen in my life from that situation, I think will serve me well in this capacity, just as we look at the whole city and the needs of every neighborhood versus, just one or two specific neighborhoods.
Thank you. If you receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run for the open seat during the November election? And what are your reasons for running or not running? And how, if at all, do you think it will influence your tenure on the board?
Right, so I definitely would plan to run. And, I think this is a very unique situation where, you can look at it two ways, but for me it's like, for the next 4 years, this is kind of a jump start. So when you start that 4-year term, you don't lose a year essentially, or you're not trying to figure things out the first year. So I kind of look at it as a 5-year, minimum of, you take these first 11 months and you really, as, the freshman board member, get to learn how things work, learn the processes, learn, the different board members and who they are and the districts they serve and the needs they have. And again, I think for me, just with being in, working in residential real estate, but having a small business, I really look at that continuation to improve the structure, facility, and environment of the school system.
Thank you. Those are all the questions.
Okay.
We certainly appreciate you coming down again. Let me just thank you for putting yourself forward for this. It's not an easy task to sort of open yourself up to anything like this, let alone this process here. So we appreciate you and putting your name forward and all that you do for the community outside of this.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
The next candidate is Ms. Deborah Corliss. evening, Ms. Corliss.
Good evening, Mr. Bourne.
So just a quick overview of how this will work. Each candidate is going to be given 5 questions. Every candidate will get the same questions. Have about 2 minutes to respond to each question. We'll be reasonable, but relatively strict in our timing of that. We want to be as fair and as open as possible. So with that, why don't you give us about 60 seconds, just sort of an introduction, and then we will jump into the questions.
Okay, my name is Deborah Corliss, and I've been on the periphery of the school board for the last 7 or 8 years. I was not one of the original Patrick Henry people, but very early on, prior to its opening, its inception, and have been very involved with the school. I have a construction company and do high-end residential renovations and new construction. I've done a significant amount of fundraising and have pretty much been responsible for the facilities committee at Patrick Henry.
Okay. Ms. Gray?
Good evening. The first question is, how do you see the role of this board as a body and as an individual member? As an individual member, I feel that I can contribute to this board with my experiences of being, as I say, on the periphery for the last 7 or 8 years, watching the tremendous growth that's taken place with all that you have done as a relatively new board, pretty much all coming in new, I guess, except yourself, with the recent election. And what I think that I can bring is someone who has watched this growth take place, and in so doing, being associated with Patrick Henry, understanding some of the things that you have to deal with, and feeling that I can come up to speed quickly in that role. I guess as part of the full board, obviously CU is the board that governs the policies and procedures for Richmond Public Schools.
Okay. Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
I think being associated with Board Patrick Henry, we've had a lot of challenging issues, not unlike the issues that you face as the large board for all of RPS, because I see Patrick Henry as really a microcosm of all the issues and challenges that you have to deal with. So I think that listening and trying to understand the issue is probably the most important. And then, putting forward a thoughtful plan and moving forward with that. And that's the way that I've seen us being the most productive in that role at the charter school.
Welcome. My question is, what do you see as the top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
There's certainly a lot of issues in Richmond Public School. I think that you as a board have certainly begun the process of putting forward true, real numbers for a budget and for the needs within the system as a whole. And I also think that the necessities for moving forward with improving the facilities is extraordinarily important. And because of my experience with Patrick Henry and also my experiences in the job that I have as a whole, I think that I can
help move discussions forward and have a good understanding of the facilities issue. And I think from a budgetary standpoint, have, as you know, attended many of the budget meetings in the past and have, those are the two things that I see as the most important. I guess that's two and not one, but thank you.
Okay. Describe the strongest assets you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
I think I'm not a problem solver. I think that I'm someone who listens to a lot of different points of view and perspectives, and would hope that in understanding the issues at hand would help facilitate moving things forward. I think that it's very important to have, an understanding and to take everyone's perspective into consideration.
Okay. If you receive the appointment for this position, one, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? Two, what are your reasons for running or not running, and how do you think it'll influence your tenure on the board?
As I stated in my letter, I believe my letter of interest to you all, my interest in this position would be to fulfill the time that's open. It would not be my intention to run. I think that it's really important to allow the first district to select their school board representative. And as such, I think that the person that you all should select to put into this position should just be someone who's looking to fulfill the term. Because I think that it does give an unfair advantage if that person who is appointed by this body were permitted to continue, would be permitted to run for the position. Because I think that you would somewhat have a leg up as far as your knowledge and all of that kind of thing. And I think that it would just be better for the first district to be able to select their person in a real election and just have this position filled for the duration of this board's term. And that would be my, what I would see myself doing. And no, I would not run for the position.
Thank you. That concludes our questions, Ms. Corliss. But I just want, on behalf of the board, say thank you for stepping up, putting yourself forward, and applying to serve the remainder of Mr. Senator Sturgeon's term. It is very difficult, as we probably all can agree, to put yourself forward and have, people basically say whether they like you or not.
I'm not taking it personally.
No, I'm not saying you would, but putting ourselves forward in this public service for this issue, which is so critical to many, many families, is nothing to sneeze at or scoff at. So thank you for putting yourself forward, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Before we get to the next candidate, just wanted to bid Ahmed best of luck the rest of the school year. You're a senior this year? Any college plans yet? I'm just kidding. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. Please come back anytime. Let's give Ahmed one more round of applause. The next candidate is Mr. Michael Dickinson.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Dickinson, thank you so much for coming in and applying for the vacancy for the First District School Board seat. Just a really quick overview about how this is going to go. Each candidate is going to get the same 5 questions. Each candidate is going to have roughly 2 minutes to answer each question. We'll be reasonable, but we're not going to be allowing a minute to drag on for 5 minutes. I think that covers the basics and the important stuff. So why don't you give us maybe 60 seconds of sort of an introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
All right, well, my name is Mike Dickinson. I grew up here in Richmond, Virginia. I went to Hermitage High School. Then I went to VCU. Through some miracle, I made it through my freshman year at VCU. And then figured out what kind of learner I was and was able to put that, because that's one of the things I never learned in high school that we don't really teach is, what kind of learner somebody. Some people visual, some people write, some people read. I figured out my freshman year of college what kind of learner I was. And my GPA went from like 0.0 to 4.0 overnight. So then I was at VCU for quite some time. I got a bachelor's in criminal justice, thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I stayed around and got a master's in urban planning because I thought I might want to design cities. And then I started getting a PhD in public policy because I wanted to get into government. I never wrote my thesis because then I got into business and using the skills that I learned through the coursework and doing business and developing businesses. And I've had probably the last 2 or 3 years a desire to get into government and to make a difference and to try to change the discussion and change the path that we're going down.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
Sure. How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member?
I think that we need to advocate for the kids. We need to fight for the kids. We need to ensure that every graduate and every student in the Richmond City school system has a fighting chance. I think that far too often, I think there's probably politicians across the street at the state capitol that have given up on kids that go to schools in the cities, that have given up on the American dream. And I think that it's our job to advocate for the children, to fight for what's right, get them the best resources, get them the best opportunities, and get them the best so that when they graduate, so that one, they can graduate, and two, so that then they have a fighting chance to go on to college or go on to a community college. It's our job to kind of take up, I mean, a lot of the times these days, children aren't in traditional homes. A lot of kids have one parent home where the one parent is working 2 or 3 jobs, and they may not be there at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock to help them with the homework, to help explain algebra to them for 3 hours. It took me many hours to learn algebra. But that's the role that the parents may not be there, so we have to find ways to get those lessons and help our teachers have the resources to give those kids those lessons. There's no way that we should be graduating children that are illiterate, that can't do basic math, that don't have a basic understanding of how government works. So many people, you talk to many kids, even on campus over at VCU, or at John Tyler or J-Star, they have grievances with government, how things work, but they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to get involved. They don't know where the buck begins, so to speak. And they want to get involved, they don't know how.
15 seconds.
They don't know how. It's our job to advocate for them and get those lessons to them so they have survival skills to not only survive but to flourish and be able to raise a family.
Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
Well, in business every day we have conflicts. We have different things that we want to get done. People have different various interests. Whether it's a building owner, a property owner, a building or a business owner, and you have to be able to discuss it. You have to be able to put it all on the table and be adults about it and discuss those ideas and those thoughts and just put it out there. I think that in this setting, as far as complex solutions, we shouldn't make fun of people in the media. We shouldn't try to go to war with people in the media. We should be free to sit here and discuss all ideas and all purposes and all thoughts, but we shouldn't try to antagonize each other. We all have to work together. At the end of the day, we have to work with city council, they have to work with us, and we have to work with the teachers and the students. So if we're fighting, we're not getting anything done. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Hello, thank you for being here. My question is, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools? And what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
I think the number one priority is something I may have mentioned in my opening statement or some survival skills. And the way that I would address that is by fighting tirelessly and not giving up, trying to find solutions so that our kids have the best. You know, it's amazing that here in Richmond, we still have fights over the condition of public schools and the conditions of what the kids have to work with, yet we have the money to build a brand new jail. It's like we're giving up on the kids to begin with, like, oh, we're not going to give you the tools to better yourself, but, oh, and when you don't have a job and you drop out of school, we're just going to warehouse you and put you in jail. And I think that's a result of kind of the way that's what's happening. Now, I would say that survival skills, teaching the kids what they need to know. And the way I would go about doing that is by advocating tirelessly. We can't give up. We have to bring the fight every day and bring the fight in adult manners, not calling people petty names. Because at the end of the day, it's not politics, it's the children that are really winning and losing. When we sit here and fight, it's the children that lose. Thanks.
Ms. Epps?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
Well, I think the strongest asset I would bring is I'm not afraid to say what I believe and not back down for it. Like I said before a couple times tonight, you know, we need to teach our kids survival skills. We need to stop this overarching view of warehousing people. We need to find ways to enable, we need to stop the problems before they begin, before people get into situations where they don't have survival skills. And we have the opportunity and we have the resources to do it, but we have to fight. We have to fight for the children. And the thing I think I would bring the best is that I'm a tireless fighter. I've been fighting for two and a half years now to get in the government some way and make my voice heard. And here I am, so I haven't given up yet.
If you receive the appointment for this position, one, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? Two, what are your reasons for running or not running? And then finally, how do you think that decision will influence your tenure on the board?
I would definitely, if I received the appointment, I would run for the position again. Right now, I am planning to run for Congress if I don't get the appointment. I'm already registered to run for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. But if I don't get that, but if I, like I said, if I don't get the appointment, I will continue running. But if I got the appointment, I would run for the school board seat again. What was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
What are your reasons for running or not running? And then how do you think that will affect your tenure on the board?
The reason I'm running is because I care. And because I think that was a bit of an unorthodox view and an unorthodox passion to want to help the children and help tomorrow by stopping and giving resources to the children today. How that would play out in the end, the third part of your question, I believe that would influence my decision to run again if I got the appointment. Because at the end of the day, I think it's all about finding some way to crack the revolving door of the problems that we have in this country. And we are on the bedrock level to be able to do that.
Mr. Dickinson, thank you so much for your thoughtful and passionate responses. But more importantly, thank you for putting yourself forward to fulfill the unexpired term of Mr. Sturdivant, Senator Sturdivant. It's not an easy decision to make to put yourself forward for public service, and anyone who does that gets my respect and my hearty appreciation. So thank you so much for doing this, and that concludes our questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Miss Elizabeth Dorr.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Thank you for
spending time to interview 10 of us.
Yes. So thank you for applying for the rest of the term. Thank you for coming out tonight and participating in this process. Just a really quick sort of overview of how this has worked and will continue to work. Each candidate is going to get the same 5 questions. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes basically to answer the question. We'll be reasonable, but we don't want it to drag on. Try to be fair and even across the board. So those are our ground rules. They'll be changed from the first candidate to now. So without any further hesitation, Ms. Gray. Oh, I'm sorry. See? Would you please take 60 seconds to just give us a brief introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
So my name is Liz Dorr. Thank you all for having me. I've been passionate about public service from a young age. My grandfather was actually superintendent of the Harrisonburg Public Schools in Pennsylvania. Upon graduating from William & Mary, I started an education nonprofit focused on environmental education to rural and underserved communities. And in some circles, it might be a bad thing, but I'm proud to call myself a community organizer. I work to help elect President Barack Obama and Governor McAuliffe, both strong advocates for education. I've had the opportunity to speak with some of you on the board. Hope to get to know the rest of you. And I've also talked with some of my colleagues and friends that are educators in the city and constituents about what they would be looking for in a school board member. One of the resounding themes was a diversity of perspectives to represent our diverse city. So the perspective that I bring is that I'm a young professional. My husband and I own a house. We do not have a family yet, but we intend to have a family, and we hope to be able to, we plan to be able to send our children to Richmond Public Schools, and so I'm here to do my part to make the school system as great as it can be.
Thank you. Matt, Ms. Gray.
Okay. Great. First question is, how do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member?
So from what I've read and from what I've talked to about you all, I know that teamwork and collaboration is extremely important. I have tremendous respect for all of you coming here twice a month and working together to agree on some really tough decisions. I know that that's no easy feat. I would say that I too am someone that is not afraid to make tough decisions. I think too often our elected officials will make decisions based on whether they will be elected, as opposed to what are the good decisions that will support the larger community. And so if I were appointed to this board, I would hope to be a member of your team. First, to be a good listener and a good learner, and then to help you all in making those good, tough decisions that are the best for our students and for our teachers.
Good evening. Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
So after I left my career in politics, I actually entered the private sector. I worked for CSX Transportation, the railroad, as an analyst and a manager in finance. But one of my responsibilities was to administer the company's program related to deploying safety money to different divisions that were the safest. One of the challenging aspects to that program is that different divisions were measured based on various safety performance metrics, and then money was allocated to those divisions. I actually found an error in the allocation process, and so it was very tough to be able to communicate, to the employees of the company about the error and about the reallocation of money, which meant that some of the money going to one division was going to be able to have to go to another division. So to be able to present that in a way that was respectful, in a way that people really understood the information, that this was not an emotional decision, that it was a fact-based decision, in a way that everybody felt good moving forward, and they knew that we were being fair.
Hello, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Number 3, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priority you identified?
I'd say the number one, the top priority would be teacher recruitment and retention. Very in support of Dr. Bennett's proposal to increase teacher pay. And I think tied to teacher recruitment and retention is the tremendous task of upgrading our facilities. Numerous studies have reported that teacher retention and teacher recruitment and student learning is deeply impacted by facilities. So I started to kind of dovetail into 2 issues, but I see them as so interrelated. It's hard to pick just one, so I would, want to continue on the support of the school board, the initiatives that the school board has already laid related to teacher retention and recruitment, and continue to make the connection that better upgraded facilities are equally as important to keeping our teachers in the schools.
Thank you.
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
Okay. One of the things that I think that I could bring to the team is my 4 years spent in finance. I'm a numbers person. I love to get into a spreadsheet. I'm a data cruncher. And complex budgets don't scare me. And one of my passions in all of my careers is to distill complicated information in a way that is easy to understand. So to the extent that it could be helpful to the board, I would love to offer my services as a data analyst and as a finance professional to help analyze issues, help break down the budget, run any reports that might be necessary to aid us in the decisions that we have to make.
If you receive the appointment for this position, 1, do you plan to run for the open seat during the November election? 2, what are your reasons for running or not running? And 3, how do you think that will influence your tenure on the board?
So yes, 1, I would plan to seek election. I believe that the reason why I would want to run is because I want to continue to serve on the board. I am not looking at this appointment as a stepping stone to any kind of other political career. I just think it is a great opportunity to make an impact on the issues that I care about for our city. As I referenced earlier, I do think that sometimes elected officials can make decisions based on their future election as opposed to based on what's good for their district and their constituents and the city at large. However, I'm not afraid of that, and I'm not afraid of losing if it means speaking up for my integrity and for the board's integrity and for the city at large. I'm an independent thinker. Just ask my husband. I'm not afraid to say what I think. I'm not afraid to do the right thing, and I wouldn't let an election get in the way of that.
Ms. Dorr, thank you so much for putting yourself forward, as all of us can attest. Standing up and saying I want to serve publicly is not an easy decision. It's not an easy task. And I think anyone that puts themselves forward deserves appreciation and thanks, and especially for a local school board. And so, on behalf of the school board, thank you so much for your willingness to step up and step forward and say, I want this job, please hire me. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you all very much.
All right.
Let the record reflect we've been joined by Mrs. Harrison Brown.
Miss Peggy Feldman.
Selfie. This is too much, selfie.
It's too much.
Hold on, wait a minute.
It's their interview song.
It's like big shade and everything.
Sorry what you gave me. I didn't pay any attention to it to just now. Not here. It was your fault because you pointed it out.
Good evening, Ms. Feldman.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for applying for the vacancy in the first district on the Richmond School Board. Just a couple really quick, simple ground rules about how this has worked and how it will work. Each candidate is going to answer the same 5 questions. Each candidate will have roughly 2 minutes to answer each of those questions. We'll be reasonable, but we're not going to allow an answer to go on for 5 minutes. We're just trying to be consistent throughout. And so those are the 2 really big rules, the basic rules that we have. So with that, would you give us 60 seconds introductory remarks, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
So my name is Peggy Feldman. I've lived in the first district 11 years. I have 2 children, my husband and I, that have gone through Richmond Public Schools. One of them graduated in 2014. The other is a sophomore currently at Maggie Walker Governor School. My husband is a first grade teacher at Broad Rock, and I am a 26-year veteran of the U.S. Navy, and then worked 4 years for the state under Secretary of Finance and Secretary of Technology. And the last 3 or 4 years, I've been a professional volunteer, as I call myself, within the school districts and a number of other areas.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
Good evening. The first question is, how do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member?
Well, I see myself within the board as a team member. I'm all about one team, one fight. I see myself as being a representative of the first district, but also very much being a part of what the entire board is attempting to accomplish. It is the Richmond School Board, Public School Board. It's not just the first district, and so I believe that I would work diligently for the issues associated with the first district, but also be very much a part of the Richmond School Board and what we're attempting to do here and the improvement of the schools as they are today.
Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
A complex conflict that took a long time to fix, or one that just well, my job in the Navy was primarily program management, and program management is always a long-term thing. You build systems, they take a long time to ever get built within the Navy. It's the same within the state. I can say that I can give you one example. Within the Navy, I took over as the program manager of the Navy's personnel and pay system, paying 435,000 people within the Navy accurately and on time. When I took over that program, a brand new system had been put in, and It was beginning the implementation phase through the reserves, the naval reserves first. And there was a lot of issues, but finally when the reserve admirals were not getting paid, it became and so we had to very quickly figure out what we were going to do about that, and that's when, literally when I came on board. And so we had to very quickly figure out what was wrong. We found out what was wrong. It was a latency issue. We had to deploy servers throughout the world that we did not expect to do. It took a lot of money, it took a lot of time, and well, not too much time in the scheme of things, but it took a lot of money. It took a lot of cajoling to the Navy to convince them that this was a requirement.
30 seconds.
But when it's personnel and pay, the Navy listens. And so we were able to accomplish that and roll it out to all 435,000 people.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
My question is, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priorities that you have identified?
I believe the top priority is the one that I believe the Richmond School Board has found to be the #1 issue right now, or what I believe to be the #1 issue, and that is the issue around facilities and what are we going to do to get out of this death spiral that we're in within the schools, and how we are being able to manage the children in a manner so that they can have a conducive learning environment. And I believe that at least some of the reports that I have seen have provided many options associated with what ways that to solve these issues. I know they're very difficult and I know they're very expensive, but I think that's part of the issue is working with leadership to determine the best way forward, to see of how we can come up with options to do that. I was in a situation with the state from 2007 is when I took over, and that was, as you can imagine, it was right when the recession started. Literally within 2 weeks of taking that job, which was supposed to be a $400 million implementation of an enterprise system, they called me in and said, the housing in Northern Virginia is going down as fast as you can imagine, and you will not be able to do that. What are you going to do now? And so we had to figure out ways to still be able to produce systems for the state, and that meant going around and working and coordinating with many people who don't typically work together to figure out a way to be able to do so. And so, yes, we may not get all the money that we need. I mean, we know that we won't. But there are solutions that we can do that can certainly help the process along the way in a step-by-step process and make it happen.
Thank you.
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
I believe what I bring to the team is my ability to work with people. I've been in a lot of situations, seen a lot of different things in program management, which is about budgeting and contracting and working with people to come to a consensus that we move forward with. I think that my relationship with my husband and what he provides to me about what's happening in some of our, he has been not only with Broad Rock, but with Blackwell and with Maymont and a number of different schools besides Mary Mumford and Lucille Brown. I think that the background that I've had being at those schools or being involved with people that are with those schools provides me the capability to better understand, although I certainly don't understand everything about it. I certainly want to learn and provide that team member capability to help move that forward.
If you receive the appointment for this position, one, do you plan to run for the open seat during the November election? Two, what are your reasons for running or not running, and how do you think it will influence your tenure on the board?
I think you should ask me that question in June or July. Certainly my expectation and the reason for being here tonight is because I believe that you need a long-term, you need to be in a position for a while to really be able to move forward with it. And so right now, it's only a 10-month position. While I believe that I can accomplish things within that 10 months, I don't believe I can accomplish everything. Certainly, the issues associated with Richmond Public Schools right now cannot be accomplished that quickly. I've worked very closely at at Maggie Walker, and things that I thought would be easy to solve take a long time. And the parents move through the school so quickly that I believe that it's a obligation for parents who have multiple students that can ultimately understand what's going on to stay around and be around. And I feel the same way about this position, that it takes a while to figure out. It's very complex, and it takes you a while to figure out what's happening, and then you can actually get a lot of stuff done, even short term, but then long term.
Thank you. Ms. Feldman, thank you so much for applying for the position and putting yourself forward to serve in a different public capacity. It sounds like you've had lots of public service. Many of us have had public service jobs before, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this one is very unique.
Well, I've served it at the national level and at the state level, and so I'm all up for the community level.
I meant his Richmond School. But no, I mean, I think anybody who puts themselves forward for this type of job deserves thanks and appreciation, because it's not easy work, but it's important work. And so thank you on behalf of the school board for wanting to step up and do this job.
Thank you very much.
Sonia Keeve. Keeve? Yes, Keeve. Good evening, Ms. Keeve.
Keeve.
Okay, great. I got it right. Thank you so much for applying, and thank you for coming down and talking with us for a little bit tonight. Very briefly and very simply, the rules of this are and have been, each candidate will be asked the same 5 questions, and will have roughly 2 minutes to answer those questions. We're going to be reasonable, let you finish your thought if it goes over, but we're not going to allow 5 or 6, 7 minute answers on a question, because we're trying to be consistent throughout. So that's it, really, from the rules perspective.
Okay.
So why don't you start by giving us about 60 seconds worth of introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Good evening. Thank you to the chair, superintendent, and members of the board. My name is Sonia Keeve, and I am a wife and a mother of 2 children in the Richmond Public School System. My son attends Albert Hill Middle and has special needs, and my daughter is a 9th grader at Open High School. She just started high school. I've been serving on the PTA at Albert Hill and also on Open High. I have 14 years of corporate experience, anywhere from project management, audit, financial analysis, and recently I was working for US FACO, and my contract ended December 31st. I've been a parent advocate practically all my life, even before my children were even born. Most of the time you'll see me in both of the schools advocating for all of our children. And my desire to run is to see Richmond Public School offer a safe and nurturing environment that's conducive for learning. I want my schools to be able to be accredited, and I simply want Richmond Public Schools to be the district of choice for all families.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
First question, Steve. How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member of the board?
As the board, as the body of the board, I believe it's designed to establish a collaborative process to set the vision and goals for the school board, to focus on the community and instill public trust with the community, to monitor goals for student achievement, to hire the superintendent and to monitor the goals as it progresses, and to provide leadership. From an individual standpoint, I would see my role as kind of studying the issues facing the district, evaluating the needs and those resources, and making sure that I am voting in a fair manner that meets the needs not only just for the first district, but for all districts in the Richmond Public School system.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
Most recently, last year, I don't know if you guys were aware, but the Boys and Girls Club that was located at Kensington and Robinson was closing their doors. And most of the children at Albert Hill Middle School were attending that, my children included. And when we found out that the Boys and Girls Club was closing, I immediately, first of all, it was at a time that we could not even believe it was happening. And so instead of kind of complaining about the problem, I reached out to the Randolph Community District Community Center and asked if they had an after-school program. And at the time, they only had 5 participants. So I called the principal at Benford Middle and introduced myself as a parent, and we were able to get after-school care to meet the needs for those kids both at Albert Hill and at Benford Middle. Now, unfortunately, transportation would not transport our kids there, though I tried. So I offered to take some kids on my own, because at the time I was working from home, and I was able to get some of those kids to the community center. And from what I understand, this year they have even a higher enrollment of kids because families are now prepared to be able to take their kids. So it was a difficult situation, but I was able to solve it, just kind of common sense thinking, and offer a solution for both districts.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
My question is, what do you see, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
What do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
I think one of the top priorities for Richmond Public Schools is the facilities needs budget. I attended one of the meetings at Overby Shepherd, and the city definitely does not have all the money to fund the 10-year plan that they're proposing. One of the things that I would do is educate the parents about what those numbers mean, because at the end, even though they're going to close some schools, parents need to be educated about what they can do in their community to help, whether it's raising money, because we're using the school as the focal point to build community. So I would want to have that conversation with parents, giving them literature and information that they need, and kind of simplify, because being in financial analysis, you know, when I attended that meeting, I could tell that they had no idea what the numbers meant. And at the end of the day, they just kind of want to know, bottom line, what is going to affect. And so I would use that opportunity again to just educate, talk to my constituents about what we can do to help the situation, because everything's about a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Epps?
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
The biggest strength that I bring, I don't know if you guys ever did any type of personality profile, but one of the things we did in corporate workspace was a DISC profile, and the initials stand for DISC, and I being influencer, and that's what I bring. I have the ability to resolve conflicts. I have an ability to kind of share ideas and also collaborate with others to bring out points and ideas that can be better solutions for the community. I know how to motivate others around me. My husband tells me all the time, I've never met a stranger, just because I want to be able to solve problems. My grandmother always said, instead of talk about the problem, be the solution instead of the problem. And that's what I bring to the table, should I be elected.
Ms. Keeve, if you receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? If so, what are your reasons for running or not running? And then finally, how do you think that decision will influence your tenure on the board?
If I was selected for the position, my first order of business is to handle the work that Glenn Sturtevant was already currently doing, because I understand that there's a lot of work that has to be done. We have a very short window. I haven't even focused on running in November. It's not a priority for me. I care about affecting change today. My son is in special needs. There are a lot of issues that need to be handled with that. Our district, 2 of our schools in the first district are not fully accredited. These are things that we need to focus on. I did read that, we have improved from 11 out of 45 schools to now 17 out of 45, which is good progress. And I know Dr. Benton has made some presentations where, before he leaves office, he wants to make sure all schools are accredited. And that's, as a parent, that's what I care about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for applying for the vacancy.
Thank you.
Anyone that's willing to put themselves forward like you have and like the other candidates have deserves to be commended. So we commend you on the school board for just putting yourself forward and stepping up for important issues at an important time. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Rupa Murthy.
Rupa?
Murthy. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. So, Ms. Murthy, just a couple of real simple rules, and then we'll jump right in. One, each candidate is going to be given 5 questions, the same questions that everybody else gets. And each candidate will have 2 minutes roughly, give or take. Obviously, be reasonable and let someone finish their thought, but not let it drag on for 5 or 6 minutes. So, 5 questions, 2 minutes to answer each question. So with that, why don't you start by giving us about 60 seconds worth of introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Sure. My name is Rupa Murthy. I am a longtime resident of the region, lived in Richmond for the last 12 years, and have made our home here. My husband and I have 3 children, 2 of which are in Richmond Public Schools. The other one is 2. And so we expect a long career here and are very committed to this region and to this community. And I'm glad to be here today, and I'm so excited to see the amount of support that the first district has across the candidates. It's really exciting.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member?
So I really enjoy working on a team. I mean, I think one of the things that we do in a community is rely on each other's strengths. I believe that my role is to be in tune with what the constituents would want and need and are looking for the future of their district, but also understanding where the first district lies in terms of the overall approach to our city and our city schools, and quite frankly, the families that are going to grow and thrive here. So when I look at me as an individual, it really is as part of a team, bringing in the strengths that I have to collaborate within my district, but also to understand the needs and the excitement that we have and build on that throughout this community.
Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
In my past role as the sort of development director or building the campaign for the Children's Mental Health Hospital at VCU, it was certainly a complex situation. The needs were incredible across this region, along with across the Commonwealth. Where we were at VCU was not a place where we were going to build a brand new hospital 8 years ago. What I was able to do and what I was excited to do was not just talk to the leadership at VCU, which was a very important role, but also build community support, begin to hear the voices of the families who needed the mental health services in the community, begin to hear the voices of the school system, the educators, the doctors, the social workers, these sort of community of providers who wanted to provide support and wanted to be a part of the solution. And bringing all of those sort of different views to one place, becoming sort of a facilitator for that conversation and understanding where we could employ some of the strongest business leadership in the community, some of the best advocates in the community, and struck some of the families who were the most excited to be a part of a very long-term plan and a long-term solution. And so once we were able to bring in that buy-in, I think what I am most proud of is sort of pulling together all those parts and setting a tone and staying the course, even when it was hard, and even when it was difficult, and even when there were sometimes not great choices, but just choices to make that were going to move us forward.
Hello, thank you so much for this evening.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My question is, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
So I think this is a tough question because there are so many really, really important needs. And I look at the work that you all have done through the bilingual initiatives, reducing class sizes in K through 3, which I believe early education is such a priority and so important for the future economic value of our community. And quite frankly, the work that you have done in the facilities plan. When you really look at where we are building our future of RPS, I see that there's no doubt that the places that we build strong students and strong communities, those places need to be safe and secure and a wonderful place to learn. So I think that the future, I'll tell you that is a hard thing to know coming in from the outside, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more about where your priorities lie, especially in this tough budget season, and learn from you all where across the district the needs are the greatest, and then be able to come in with some of my own constituent needs and wants and layer those on top. So I don't mean to dodge the question. I'm certainly, I think about the salary decompression plan that Dr. Benton laid out. They're all very good and very important, and knowing how tricky it is in this budget season and how tough the decisions that you all are making daily, weekly, and certainly monthly for the families across RPS. I don't think I could come in here today and say, this is my top priority, and I can't wait to see it done. I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about that from you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 4.
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
I find my leadership style to be very collaborative. I know I've mentioned that word before. What I like to do, again, is to learn from the different players that want to be at the table, that have a voice and have a stronghold. So when you ask me about that, I really believe that the collaborative nature of who I am, the understanding that I am so solution focused. You know, I really want to find the right solution, a good solution that works well for the community and for my constituents. I would say to you that it would be hoping to be inspirational in getting folks to be involved in the process. You know, I was so disappointed to see 3 people at the facilities rollout at Albert Hill. It really was, you know, when you think about where the needs are and what the conversation is, whether that's played out in the paper or whether that's in various meetings across the community, I find it hard to believe that only 3 people that were available for a meeting at Albert Hill. So just when you think about being inspiring and making sure that people are engaged in the process, I think that's my strongest asset to bring to this board. And hopefully my leadership skills around collaboration will circle this around.
Ms. Murphy, if you receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run during the November election? And what are your reasons for running or not running? And how do you think that will influence your tenure here on the board?
Great question. Yes, I do plan to run. The reasons for running, there's no doubt that I want to make a difference. There's no doubt that I want to be engaged. There's no doubt that I see the families of Richmond as an asset to our region and to our state, and I absolutely want to be a part of those solutions and seeing RPS and our families and our community grow and prosper. And I think that there are some really great opportunities that lie ahead through some of the initiatives that you all have set forth. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And so for that reason and that reason alone, I really do want to engage in being part of this board and part of the solution for the long term. So in terms of how that would affect my decisions, I'm looking for long-term solutions. I'm looking for solutions that are absolutely a part of the fabric of our community in terms of where we're going to go, and understanding a little bit about where we are now. I'm very engaged, as you've probably seen through the Merriman PTA. I'm also engaged in community conversations with business leaders through the Richmond Business Council work that I do. I've been a part of the community for a long time, so pulling together those opinions and understanding what the long-term solutions are is a vital part, I think, of RPS and where we're going to go and where we need to be. So I'm going to make decisions based on long-term solutions, certainly not a November due date.
Ms. Murphy, thank you so much for joining us tonight and having a brief, albeit brief discussion, but I thought a substantive one. But more importantly, I just want to thank you for stepping up and wanting to be part of this and putting yourself forward for this type of public service. It is a very special and unique space that we occupy here on the Richmond School Board. So thank you so much and for sharing your thoughts briefly and just stepping up.
Thank you, and thank you all very much for the work that you do.
Thank you. Matthew Percival. Mr. Percival, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for submitting an application to serve out the remaining term of Senator Sturtevant. We have just a couple rules. That's it. They've been the same, and they're going to continue to be the same until we're done with the interviews. One is each candidate will get the same 5 questions, and each candidate will have roughly 2 minutes to answer that question. Obviously, we're going to be reasonable, let you finish a thought, maybe 2, but we're not going to allow it to go on for 5 or 6 minutes. Those are really the only ground rules that we have here. And so with that, would you give us about 60 seconds worth of introduction, and then we'll just jump right into the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. I don't know if you received my intent letter and resume. You did. My background is in information technology. And one of the reasons I thought that this would be a good opportunity is to bring that sort of background to this environment, the school environment, the board environment. The challenges that face pretty much every aspect of government are limited resources and how to do more with less. And my background has been doing exactly that in many sectors of the private sector and the public. So if you can use technology to leverage resources, then you can start to move resources, shuffle those resources into other areas to make up for budget shortcomings. So that's pretty much about me.
All right, thank you, Ms. Graham.
Sure, and you may want to lift your mic a little bit. I don't know, it looks like folks in the back might know. How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member of the board?
Well, boards in general typically like steering committees that they handle the budget and basically set the direction for everything, all the tasks that need to be done. Each individual member has a responsibility to give their best to actually make sure that that budget is sound and that you've examined all the resources and you're able to put forth the best effort that you can with those resources.
Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
Just one. Complex problem that didn't seem to have a solution. Yes, well, I do a lot of software engineering. I write programs, and that's pretty much my job. I work for a small business. We do work for the Department of Defense, Navy in particular. We were presented with a challenge, a technological challenge, to actually get data to Navy ships in a limited bandwidth environment and large amounts of data. So basically they said, these are the resources that you have, go forth and conquer. So we did. There's nothing strange about that. That's how information technology works, that's how software development works. Where it gets interesting is when you start to work in the aspect of the government, the Navy, and cybersecurity. So every time you put forth a solution, you say, here's the solution. And they come back and they say, you can't do that. Well, why not? That's the best solution. Because you can't. Okay, so you go back and you refactor it and you come back and you say, here's the next best solution. You say, great, okay. Well, you can't do that either. So you go down the rung, and I won't bore you with that, but after about 10 or 11 or 20 of those, you start to come forth with a solution. The bottom line is that you can't quit, you can't say it can't be done, you simply find a new way to do it, or the best way to do it with the available resources that you have.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
What do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools? And what steps would you take to address the priority that you have identified?
Well, obviously, I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be a budget challenge. You've got to make up deficits and budgets. You've got to create extra resources to fund unfunded initiatives. And so when you look at certain things, I'd say the biggest challenges to the Richmond Public Schools from a budget standpoint, any institution for that matter, probably infrastructure and manpower. And those are things that aren't easily leveraged with technology. Unless you want to put on your overalls and turn a wrench, you can't do much to fix a school bus. So those are hard costs. What you can do is you can find other areas that you can leverage technology, where you can rearrange those costs and move some more funds into that. So the biggest challenge would be, from a board standpoint, is making sure the budget is intact. Try to free up resources wherever you can, leverage whatever you can. Like the story that I just gave, the analogy that I just gave, just because you can't do it in one area, you can't quit. You've got to find another area to free up those resources. And you shuffle those over, you fix those shortfalls, you try to make up more resources that you can put towards the things that you want to do.
Thank you so much.
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
If I may use my wife's, she said level-headedness is probably what I would bring. So when I enter into an environment where there are lots of opinions, I tend to listen to all the opinions and find the pros and cons of all the opinions and try to get to a resolution very quickly. I'm one of those types of people on jury duty. I immediately become the foreman, not by choice, but just because. And so in an environment like that, you have to listen to everybody. You can't just throw pencils at each other or you're not going to get out. I'm sure you've all served on jury. They won't let you go home until you come to a conclusion. Not saying everybody's on trial here, but it's very similar. You have to have a resolution at the end of the day. And they're not always easy resolutions. And everybody has an opinion, as they should. But we need to separate facts from opinions and need to actually get to the actual matter at hand and come up with the best solution that we can.
If you were to receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? And what are your reasons for running or not running? And how do you think that will influence your tenure here on the board?
That's a very interesting question. You asked that question. To be honest, I had not thought about running for school board until this position opened. My son and Mr. Sertiman's son share a school, they share a grade, they share a classroom, they share a teacher, they share a table, they share the same first name. They're actually friends. And so I knew that he was leaving, and my wife read about it in the paper, and so I thought about it and thought this would be a great opportunity. I know it's for a year-long term. It got me to start thinking about what about if the seat comes open at the end of the year. And it really got me interested that regardless of what happens here filling this position, that it would be something very interesting to pursue in the next year. I do not have political aspirations, so I'm not looking to run for president of the United States. I like to do the most that I can to help the situation. Right now we have 2 young children, one who's entered the public school system, one who will next year, and we want to make the Richmond public school system the best that it can be. We're dedicated to keeping our kids in the public school system, and we want them to get the most out of it that they can, as well as every other child that attends the schools in the Richmond public school system, across all districts.
Thank you so much for coming in, talking with us a little bit. So thank you so much for putting yourself forward in this vein of public service. It's not easy to make that decision to do, but when people do step up and make themselves available for public service, they ought to be commended. And so we commend you and thank you for even considering and putting your application in. We've enjoyed hearing from you, and so thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes, sir.
Cody Sigmund? Good evening, Mr. Sigmund. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for applying for the vacancy in the 1st District School Board seat. Just got 2 really simple rules about this interview that's going to happen. Each candidate has or will receive the same 5 questions. Each candidate has or has had 2 minutes to answer those questions. We will be reasonable. I'll let you finish the thought, maybe 2, but we're not going to allow an answer to go on for 4, 5, 6 minutes. And so with that, give us 60 seconds introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Hello, my name is Cody Sigmund. I am a teacher in Chesterfield County. I teach 8th grade English at Carver Middle School. I went to the College of William & Mary, where I majored in English and linguistics. And then I moved out to California to attend Stanford University for my master's in secondary English education. I'm a Virginia native. I'm originally from southwestern Virginia. And when I moved to California with the intention of moving back to Virginia, to my home state. So I resolved to move back to Richmond in order to be a public school teacher at a lower income school.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
It's okay. How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member?
So, I think, so to address the first part of your question, I think that the role of the school board body is to create a sort of decision environment for everyone within the school board, or excuse me, the school district. So, from people at central office all the way down to a student. So, for example, as a teacher, I see my role is to create a learning environment in which students feel that they can make the choice to learn, right? And similarly, I think that you review, you create policy in order to create that decision environment where people can make decisions about what's best for kids. As an individual, I see my role as someone who is to listen to and relay and act upon the concerns of my constituents. I also see my role as advocating for underserved students, which is one of the main reasons that I'm interested in this position.
Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
So, I guess there's a word that we use to describe this. It's a dilemma, right? A problem is something where you have an immediate solution. It's something where there's something where you can apply and you fix it. A dilemma is something where you're dealing with multiple parts, right? And that's something that I believe the school board is dealing with all the time. They're dealing with issues that are extremely tangled, and to try and pry apart those pieces and figure out to get to the root of it is your main challenge. So to give you an example, at my school, I noticed that a significant proportion of my honors students were white females, and a significant proportion of my students labeled as C-level were minorities, especially minority males. So I asked for permission from my principal to conduct what I called a diversity audit. We're actually going to look at the numbers to see if it matched the anecdotal evidence. And indeed it did. In 8th grade alone, minority males are 16% of our honors enrollment, but are 25% of our overall student body. Excuse me. I think it's 30% of our overall student body. So we're looking at a huge disproportionality. So what have I done? I've talked to my principal about it. In March, we're creating together a professional development for teachers on how to address bias in your decision making in terms of when you're asked to make that decision of how you're going to level a student. I brought the issues up with the school board in Chesterfield County. I've also brought it to the attention of Delegate Dolores McQuinn.
15 seconds.
Because I want it to be addressed, because it's a systemic issue, it's a dilemma, right? It has all of these things that need to be teased apart.
Ms. Taylor?
Hello, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Absolutely.
My question is, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools? And what steps would you take to address that priority that you have identified?
I think something that has been mentioned at several meetings is attracting and retaining high-quality teachers. And I think, I was in the job market looking for teaching jobs in the area. I know what the salaries look like. They're very similar, except Richmond City has a little bit higher salary than some of the neighboring places, at least when I was searching. However, retaining teachers once you've attracted them is a different matter entirely. Especially, there have been talks of the pay freeze, but I think there are a lot of other things to consider as well. For example, if I'm a teacher, I was talking to a teacher who teaches in Southside. She was talking about a teacher who has to teach on the threshold between a classroom and an office, and has students in both of those rooms, and has to teach from there because there's so many students that she's trying to serve, right? And the issue that I see here is that suddenly when your pay is frozen and you're dealing with things like overcrowding and you're dealing with things like crumbling facilities, then that's when you make the choice to go somewhere else. So I think teacher retention is a problem. It's a big problem, right? With it's a dilemma, right? And you have to tease apart those different things, right? So as a member of the school board, you know, I would want to be talking about which of those things we would want to invest our time in. Is it that we want to, you know, make it so we don't have overcrowding? That, you know, do we want to make it so we're paying teachers more? Do we want to invest in our facilities?
15 seconds.
But to me, teacher retention is definitely, teacher attraction and retention is definitely a major priority.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Epps?
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
So I think aside from, you know, being young and capable with technology, which I think is always a great thing to have around, I think that one of my main strengths is getting people to work together. I am a strong believer in collaboration all across the board, whether it's in professional development or in you know, professional learning communities, or whether it's working on different committees inside of the school and getting teachers to work together. I guess one of my prouder achievements was implementing a project-based learning experience with the other teachers, the other 8th grade English teachers. So language arts can sometimes be filled with a lot of one-man soldiers who have been doing it for a very long time. They've developed the things that work for them. And so sometimes getting everyone to get on the same page in terms of wanting to implement the same curriculum at the same time is difficult. And you know, it wasn't perfect, but working with other teachers who have different backgrounds than me, who have different passions than me, different interests, and getting everyone to get on the same page and to agree on a common assessment that we would be using, and to agree on the time frame and what exactly we would be doing, definitely felt like an accomplishment. And I think that a lot of that had to do with making sure that I was listening to other people and to making sure that everyone's voice is heard, not just my own, seeking first to understand, then to be understood. I think that all of those are elements of my ability to be diplomatic, a team player.
If you receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? What are your reasons for running or not running, and how do you think it will influence your tenure on the board?
To be perfectly honest, this is a decision I have not made my mind up on yet. The reason being that I think when this position arose, it came at a very an interesting juncture, right? So here I was, I come back from California, I applied to work in Richmond Public Schools and never got a call back. And so I took myself elsewhere. And so all of a sudden there's this position that opens up. I happen to live in the right place at the right time to serve the community that I'm interested in. And I wanted to be a part of this decision-making body. So I want to see how it works for me, right? I want to see how it feels to be a member of the board. I'm not here in terms of any interest in politics. It's not like that's not what motivated me to apply for this position, right? But if it's a place where I feel like I'm being effective, and if it's and I feel like the community is gaining from my experience, I'm gaining from my experience, then certainly I would consider continuing to serve the community. But you know, otherwise I've got 10 months to try and make a difference, right?
Mr. Sigmund, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's been a delightful conversation. I'll be a brief one. But you know, a couple things. One, thank you so much for putting yourself forward in this very public service. It's a special space that we in Richmond Public Schools operate here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for being a public school teacher, wherever you're teaching. As you know, it's a pretty noble calling. But again, thank you so much for applying and putting yourself forward to serve at least the remaining term of Senator Sturman. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
So now that that's officially over, where in Southwest Virginia did you grow up?
Boone's Mill, Virginia, right outside of Roanoke. Population 230.
That's not south enough for him.
No, it's not. I grew up in Whitfield. That's the only reason. Nothing to do with it. Thank you so much. Emily Turner.
I mean, it's not that hard to figure out.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Turner. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us tonight and spend a little bit of time talking to us about the vacancy for the First District on the Richmond Public School Board. As I've said to all the other candidates, we have basically two rules of the road here.
Okay.
One is you'll get the same questions, same 5 questions everybody else got, and you'll have the same 2 minutes that everybody else had to answer the questions. We're going to be reasonable if you have to finish a thought or maybe 2 thoughts, but we're not going to let it drag on for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes.
That's fair.
And so with that, if you would spend about 60 seconds just sort of giving us a brief introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Sounds great. Well, as you know, my name is Emily Turner. I'm a professional educator. This is my 7th year as an elementary school teacher. I spent the first 6 years of my career working for Richmond Public Schools, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I miss my kids, I miss my building, I miss my colleagues. But for a number of reasons that many teachers speak of every day, I needed to leave the district for the health of myself and my family. Yes, I am much shorter than everyone. I'm also a parent in the First District. I have a daughter who goes to Mary Mulford, and my youngest daughter will be starting kindergarten in a couple of years. Yeah, no more daycare. So as a community member, a parent, and an educator, I feel like I have a lot of different perspectives to bring to the table for the school board. And I've always looked to make a more macro level difference. I love teaching. I don't want to leave the classroom, but it'd be nice to have a larger impact as well. You know?
Thank you. Ms. Gregg?
Sorry, wrong question. How do you see the role of this board as a body and yourself as an individual member of the board?
Well, I would see the board as a guiding force for Richmond as a school board, as a district. This is the place that teachers and parents look to for guidance, look to for vision. This is where people turn their eyes to get an idea of what it is that we want as a city for our young people and for the future of our city, because as we all know, education is the foundation, and without a strong education system, there is no success for anybody. With that in mind, as a member of the school board, I would like to contribute in any way possible, not just as a representative of the First District, but with a real focus to the health of the entire school board and the entire school district. I believe that when one area succeeds, all areas have the potential to succeed, and by working together, we can do the best for all of our babies.
Thank you, Ms. Larson.
Good evening. As public officials, we are often faced with challenging situations that do not have immediate solutions. Please discuss your experience with a complex problem or conflict and how you addressed it.
Oh, gee, I have to pick just one? Okay, an issue with a complex problem. Well, as a teacher, these are the types of issues that we deal with every day. Anything from children coming in from very high poverty backgrounds and all of the challenges that they face both on a personal level and on being able to get their needs met so that they're able to really learn to their best. I had a student my second year teaching, and I will look up at the ceiling so I don't tear up. He was a sweet young man. Very difficult circumstances. My entire career has been in Title I schools, and that's exactly where I want to stay, is working with those students. And he was a very bright young man, the eldest of many siblings, and for a lot of reasons, often took on sort of the parental role in his family, even as a second grader. And it made it so things like homework and studying and doing word study were difficult for them to complete on a regular basis. So, after many attempts to work with the parents and find a collaborative solution, he and I got together and had our own little meeting and worked with the administration that I had at the time and developed a schedule whereby he and I were able to work together during recess, during lunch, during that few minutes after school before he absolutely had to get on the bus, just to try and bring him along and to catch him up to where everybody else was. And I mean, he was a quick study, so it was able to be done. Thank you. But the emotional challenges involved in that and the tricky nature of working with multiple levels of authority figures took some work.
Ms. Taylor?
Hello, thank you so much for being here this evening. Pleasure. My question is, what do you see as a top priority for Richmond Public Schools, and what steps would you take to address the priority you have identified?
As a whole, I feel like teacher retention is an issue for the Richmond Public School District. Pending as an example, unfortunately, but I feel like recruiting and maintaining a strong instructional staff is really fundamental to building the overall health of a school building or a school district. You just can't get the longevity you need to really succeed over the long term if you've got teachers quitting every single year, or maybe making it two, So I feel it's really important to listen to teachers and listen to their concerns. So as a member of the board, one of the things that I would be interested in focusing on is really reaching out to our instructors at every level and seeing how they feel. What is the climate that they are dealing with? Not necessarily things like salary, because nobody gets paid enough for anything, right? But what is it on an active level that we could do to make you want to stay? What is it that you enjoy about your job? What is it that's challenging? How can we assist and support you so that you want to make Richmond Public Schools your long-term home? The longer you are here, the more successful you are as an educator. And the longer you're here, the more successful our babies can be.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Epps?
Describe the strongest asset you would bring that will strengthen our team and enhance our board's effectiveness.
Interesting question. I believe that having multiple perspectives as a community member, a parent, and an educator is one of my strengths. I have no problem getting up and speaking my mind, and people tell me I'm funny when I make a joke, which is not often because I don't think I'm funny. I believe that being able to listen and hear multiple perspectives is one of the things that makes any group of decision makers strong. and having as many perspectives available to you to approach any given question from is naturally going to make that decision-making process much richer and the conversation much more layered and much more likely to get to the root of any issue that there may be. And I believe that I would bring that.
Thank you. If you receive the appointment for this position, do you plan to run for the open seat in November? And what are your reasons for running or not running? And how do you think it will influence your tenure on the board?
Well, I would plan to run. It would seem to be the most logical decision. Again, I would want to run for the same reasons that I want to be a part of the board now. I want to help be a part of making Richmond City as a whole an even better place to live. I love this city. I've been here for 10 years. I'm not going anywhere else. And I believe firmly that a strong education system is key to building our city, building our community as a whole. And so for that reason, I would want to stay on the board and continue to make that larger difference. To answer the whole question.
I think that answers it.
Okay. I'm trying to keep it brief. I know you guys have
No, you've done a
you could
masterful
yammering on
job.
for me.
You've done a masterful job keeping it brief but substantive. Ms. Turner, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you even more for submitting yourself to this process and saying, I want to serve. I want to serve in a place like Richmond, which can be tough at times. I'd be remiss if I didn't also say thank you so much for being a public school teacher. Many have said it's the most noble calling anyone can have. I'm not sure that I can disagree with that. But thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. And I hope that it's been enjoyable for you as well.
It has. Thank you all so very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And for the audience members, that concludes the interview portion of this meeting. For anybody here still interested, we will have a public hearing on the candidates February 1st at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, what's the next item on our agenda?
The next item is item 5, public information. I have one person to sign up in advance. Village officials today.
We'll have that person come up. If you're an individual, you have 3 minutes. Representing an organization, you have 5 minutes.
Ray Muhammad. Ray Muhammad.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to address the board in public information period? All right, next item on the agenda. I'm sorry, come on up.
Good evening to Dr. Benton from the School Board and Associate. I'm not going to really say what I'm here for, but I'm concerned about transportation.
May I please state your name for the record?
Marion Ebrook,
Thank you.
Shop Stewart, Lee Shop Stewart, Local 572. It is serious. I was here on the 8th in Mr. Craig's office. I asked for Dr. Benton, Mr. Gibbs, Mr. Miles, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Frank, and Ms. Down. I don't know whether you all got the message or not, but this is a serious problem we have in transportation. And I would like to have a meeting with the school board. And if y'all will find time, I'm begging you all. You all might not even get in the right words. Y'all say everything's okay, but it's not. That's all I'm saying. It is serious. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to address the board during our public comment period? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board during our public comment period? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda.
The next item, is item 6, we have no academic improvement items this evening. Item 7, your budgetary items. Discuss the superintendent's fiscal year 17 estimated needs and CIP budget.
All right. I think I saw Mr. Westbay, and I certainly see that's, is there a presentation, an update presentation, or is this just a discussion? Okay.
Since the work session last week, we made a few adjustments. This sheet right here recaps it. We received a rate reduction from PRS. There's a rate reduction from 9% to 6% and some change on the non-instructional VRS rate, which allowed us to reduce the budget by $246,000 for the next biennium. That's a change in that rate. For the next biennium. A staffing review revealed another $259,000 we could reduce in some salary changes, and then we recommended netting that against. We also got a software quote for upgrading. We had one of the items that was in the superintendent's estimate of needs was an upgrade of our human resource system, but really we need an upgrade of the entire system, which is payroll, accounts payable, HR, the whole banana, as an integrated system. And we got a quote from a vendor, our existing vendor, which is an upgrade path, not a new system, but an upgrade path to the current, a modernized system version of that. They've allowed us some very flexible payment terms over 5 years. And the first year's portion of that we could handle. If we added that $259,000 we found in savings in the salaries to the $150,000 that was in there for the HR system, that would give us $400,000 to apply next year toward that system, which would pay for about half of it, even though that would give us 5-year payout terms on it. So it nets us with a reduction of $245,000. So the gap we had before is now standing at $21,396, and with the governor's $3.3 million in revenue, as it sits right now, leaves you with a net local funds need of $18,048,000. Pardon?
I said easy peasy.
Yeah. A mere $18 million. So, also we sent you key points from that last work session, 15 bullet point items for your review. And so with that, we have the spreadsheet here with all of the items checked off the bullet. That was a worksheet. We have not received any response from any board member at this point in terms of any input on any of these items yet, but last year what we did was go through these. We've expanded that out to all the detail behind the summary items, and so there's 80 some items on here that add up to this $18 million. And right now we check them all yes, that you would include them. So any that you want to take out would reduce that $18 million number as we go. So I'm not sure. And also, earlier today I got an email from an external audit firm offering services to contract out the internal audit services if you want to go that way, and they were given an estimate of looking at a risk analysis and then basing your audit program for the year based on that risk analysis of addressing the highest risk items. And they're estimating that they're doing this for multiple other divisions in the state, cities, and school boards. And they're saying where they're doing that, that they usually take on 5 to 6 audit programs, items, recommending based on risk. Here's what we recommend reviewing. They would factor in the work that the city's internal audit department has done to date, and then plan those items to dovetail with not looking at the most recent items first, but the things that would be oldest or that haven't been looked at in a while. They're estimating you'd spend $200,000 to $250,000 a year on that. That does not include the student activity funds. You'd still need another $100,000 for that, for an external audit of the activity funds annually. So that's another alternative. That was one of the alternatives that was in the impact paper that we gave you last week on the audit function. Yes, ma'am.
Just for a point of clarity, you said that the services that this external auditor will provide would cost us around $250,000. Wouldn't we save considerably by just putting out job description for hiring a new auditor in-house?
Well, you were spending close to $500,000 a year with an internal audit department, so.
That's for the entire department, but only one of those positions, the auditor, him or herself, was added onto the budget. The people who were in that department, the 4 additional people are still in-house, right?
Only 2 at this point. You removed $300,000 from the budget last year when you adopted this year's budget.
Okay, so if we hired one and keep the 2, then we would, in all actuality, only be costing us for 1 employee.
If that would work, you had 5 employees in there previously.
Okay, but still, 2 of the 5 are still here, and one of those positions, the funding was transferred to another line item. So in actuality, 3 positions, the funding is still in-house, and we're still operating off of that philosophy.
There's only 2 positions right now in the internal audit function right now.
But the funding for the auditor itself is still in-house, is still a part of the budget, because I thought we transferred it to facilitate another area of the budget with my memory.
Well, you cut $300,000 in general when you adopted the budget that went to balancing the budget in total. So you can't really say where that money is. It's buried down in your base budget. So in other words, if you wanted to restore the internal audit function as it was in-house, you'd need to add back $300,000 and to have the same complement of staff that you had previously, which was a director for 3 or 4.
3 auditors.
3 auditors and a clerical.
Okay. Just for the record, I've mentioned it before, Mr. Bourne, but I would definitely like to see us put out a position for that to be filled again in-house to answer to exclusively to the board. And so if you can crunch out the numbers of what that would look like, to have an auditor in-house again, and at least, I would say 2 members of staff to see what that all would equate to. I would like to see those numbers.
I think that's what you just gave us, pretty much.
But I mean, not an external one, I'm looking for
No,
somebody.
it was about $300,000. That was in the report that they sent, the impact statement. You sent like 3 or 4 times. They say if you want to put the department back, you're probably talking about $300,000 on this estimate.
Okay, well, definitely, I would like to see that added on, for sure, because it's something I've been asking for since we lost the auditor initially.
I mean, I think, does anybody else have any questions on this topic? Well, I think one of the things we have to, I think, ask ourselves is, what's going to be most effective? Like, what is going to get us the best bang for our buck? Clearly, with the old system that we had, we felt as a board when we first came in that we needed a different set of eyes to do a complete audit. And so I just don't want us to put out a position and go back to the way we were just because that's the way it's always been. If external auditors are better, more comprehensive, can help us on the back end save additional funding or more money, then I think we need to explore that. So I guess we just need to find out whether there's consensus to, where we want to go with the audit department. Because I think as it's been laid out in the impact statements, there are other cascading effects that could have positive impacts on our finances and our ability to get a handle on some of the structural defects that we have. I know Ralph, since he's been here, has been saying we need another budget analyst, and that can do some auditing, and do some analysis and budget work. So we just need to make that decision because, as we all saw in email, we'll be in need of some budget help very soon.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Just to follow up, I just think that it's very important that we find someone who's going to be able to answer directly to the board, and that will be able to bring us information, follow-up information. Whereas when we're using the city auditor initially, Mr. Delisle, you're talking about getting one set of information and then schedules being pushed back, trying to facilitate bringing that information back to us, something that was timely, somebody that we can have our pulse on and get the answers and follow-up responses that we need in a timely fashion.
And I would just suggest that that's the nature of audits.
But I think it's contingent upon who you're answering to.
All I need to do is remind all of us of the level of responsiveness that we got from our old way of doing audits.
Yeah, and for me, that would seem to have been more personality driven, and I think that if we could bring someone in at this stage of the game, it would be an entirely different result. So, rather
if there are others that feel this way, we'll put the money back in the budget.
Let me also add that if you want the contract approach with an external auditor hired as your internal auditor, that's what they're talking about. That function would be reporting directly to the board. It would be you setting the agenda for the audit program. They would be giving you the risk analyses and recommending the areas to be audited. It would be your choice as to what was audited, and those reports would be directed to the board. It would not be at the administration level.
Okay, and that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's in place so that when we are going through the checkoff list, it's there to choose from with the board consensus. Thank you.
Ms. Larson?
Unrelated to the auditor situation, as I've been getting a lot of feedback from the teachers about the salary pay schedule and support for that, several of them, and we heard it during public comments too, have mentioned the healthcare and the amount of money that they're paying out of pocket. And I know we've talked about it around the edges of it a little bit during this budget process, but is there anything we can do to address that? Are these situations, I mean, I had one teacher contact me and say, one ER visit cost them $6,000. Are these anomalies? I mean, I've heard it more than once, so it seems to be a trend, and I'm concerned because we all know that teachers don't make a ton of money to begin with, and just wondering what we can do.
We can bring you some information for comparative reporting to show where our plans stand to the surrounding localities. I don't think our plan is, I think our plan is very competitive with the surrounding localities and the coverage and the deductions we have. I mean, health insurance is a tough subject all the way around. I mean, it's not a good situation, but I think as it goes, we've got a decent plan with decent coverage and deductibles. We just added the high deductible plan as a third option to the two that we had for the employees who want it. That does have high deductibles. It also has a health savings account component to it that the board's contributing $500 to for employee-only contributions. We just made that first contribution to their accounts this week, in fact, at the start of the new calendar year. So those deposits were made effective
today. And so we've got 38 employees that signed up for that. I think the city had about 80 employees sign up for that high deductible plan. So out of close to 8,000 covered employees, that's, and it's because we still offer the other two options, so employees are waiting in slowly, but those plans were designed for people who plan to be healthy for the most part of the year, or over years can build up that health savings account, so that's their safety net. That takes time, and that money, the advantage of that is that money follows the employee. They leave here, that health savings account goes with them wherever they go.
What's the high deductible and what's the lowest deductible? Do you know off the top of your head? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, maximum out of pocket on our standard policy is, I don't know, in the neighborhood of, do we know? I don't know. That's what I'm saying, let us put together a sheet showing you what our deductibles are for the 3 plans we have, compare it to what our surrounding competitors have for plans, and then we'll take a look at that.
Ms. Larson, the issue that the teachers just shared with me is it's the plan that you had was much more robust than the plan you ended up with with the collaboration with the city. The challenge is you don't have the capacity right now to back out of that and go alone, as I understand it. So that's the challenge. So it's not so much that it's a competitive plan, but it's when you compare it to what they had is the issue.
Ms. Gray?
So, and I know it's difficult to back out of this plan. I've looked for other solutions, and I know one of the first orders of business when we came on as a board, Jeff appointed Glenn and me to work with the auditor, the city auditor, and there were lots of findings from that audit. One was we were working off a boilerplate contract. We didn't really have any contractual language with the healthcare administrator, and that the way that claims were being paid wasn't exactly to our benefit because they weren't investigating the claims to the extent, and then they've been paying out more because we're self-insured, but they're administering it, so they're not really looking at the bottom line. So have we done anything to try to adjust the structural issues so that we can find some savings on the budget side?
Well, we've changed consultants, so we have a new consultant on board as of start this school year for the city and schools combined. Their analysis is that that the discounts we're receiving and so forth on the payments or claims that are being paid, they've done an analysis on the claims for the city and the school board separately, and they're saying that it's about a 50-50 split. That the plan is being administered according to the terms, but and that if we were to split, that it's pretty much a 50-50 deal where there's maybe some excess costs where one entity has claim, like you have a stop loss over $300,000 on claims, other insurance kicks in instead of self-insurance when a claim hits $300,000 or more. That one of us either has more of those claims and then the other one has more general claims under the normal threshold, that it ends up being over the last 5 years about a 50-50 split. So that's been the analysis of 2 different third-party advisors. So,
but even with that,
but the issue was with the contract, we never got finalized, never got signed. That was the issue with the auditor, that the contract never got. But we're at a point 5 years down the road, we're ready to sign a new contract now. So we're going to, the RFP is in process right now, being reviewed. It's going to be on the street the next couple of weeks.
and I think what Umesh's audit got at more on the claims and maxing out those claims was not so much schools versus the city side. It was more
in total.
And should we be paying out the amount of claims that we are? Should some of those claims not have gone through because the person reviewing them doesn't really have an incentive to really challenge the claim.
Part of the, if I remember that, one of the findings was that they wanted to be able to go look at the books and look at the claims up in Pennsylvania or wherever it was, and
they
were
denied
that, right, because of HIPAA regulations and so forth. So I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at more specifics about, I don't know that it was determined that there wasn't discounts applied appropriately. It was just that they were denied, that our internal auditors were denied the opportunity to do that kind of review. Right.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. For comparative analysis, has the administration at any point put out a bid through the procurement for the health insurance of their procurement process to see if we can entertain it?
We're in the middle of it right now.
Okay.
Reviewing an RFP that'll be put on the street in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, that's what you was, okay. I just wanted to make sure that was what I understood.
For the next round of coverage for health carrier, whatever, third-party administrator, which right now is Cigna.
Okay.
For the city and schools. That's what's going on the street.
What do we anticipate as being, what type of interest do you think that would show as far as bringing in additional people to consider or companies to consider?
Well, I think it would be a huge interest because we're a large group, so we definitely have interest of all the carriers in this area.
Okay. That basically was a follow-up to that. The main reason, the main question I have is the discussion we had about parks and recreation. Were you all able to come up with any numbers that would entertain increasing the students' participation in swimming, the grade levels? I think it's second grade. Were you all able to bring that to the table?
Yeah, at this point, no.
I think the answer that was given, that I received later from Ms. King, is it's not the Parks and Rec. It's the Y that does the program.
That's why I wanted you all to look into it, because the Y apparently is unraveling the association with the Y in the city Parks and Recreation. And so that's why I was hoping that someone would be able to look into what that would look like to build a new relationship with Parks and Rec, because it's their facilities that we're using. I followed up with Ms. Gray's response to my line of questioning last week as well, with the $2.6 million for repairs to the facilities, the infrastructures, and my understanding is...
That's one pool.
What, 1.6?
No, that's one pool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was just one pool, Calhoun.
Right, exactly.
But there's several other pools that are out of commission.
Yeah, but as far as the indoor pools, we have Swansboro, which is up and running. We have Broad Rock, which is up and running. So there's only the one pool in the Calhoun Center that's not up and running. And my understanding is that the breakdown from the facilities perspective was a $300,000 figure due to the water hose and the heating system. So I was hoping that that conversation could be had, if we can have someone come to the table and see what the cost would be to bring that discussion to the table, to give our children some allowances to have access to that type of skill set. As far as what you were saying, Dr. Vedden, about the people, the Parks and Rec having access to our students to create an environment where they can recruit future workers.
Is this, and I'm just wondering how this relates to the budget discussion.
Well, basically,
I mean, are you asking to add money? I mean, because it seems to me that we don't know what that number is.
Exactly, and that's why I want the discussion to be had.
And I don't think it's a discussion that we can have thoughtfully or fruitfully in the next 7 days, which is when we're scheduled to vote on the budget. So unless there's a consensus of people wanting to add this now at this time, I think we're just going to have to wait and be more thoughtful, be more strategic about finding out how much it's going to cost us, what the assets are, what the lay of the land is. I mean, we can't, in the order of magnitude about issues that we have to spend $200,000 or $300,000, let alone $2 or $3 million. I mean, the system's been working for second graders, and there's a reason that they do it. There's a method So if we want to change that, we need to have a longer conversation about it. So
Just with all due respect, Mr. Bourne, I've been trying to have discussion for over 2 years now. I'm not saying that this is something that we would definitively invest our money, but what I'm saying is that while we're going to the table to have the discussion with city council to say what the needs are,
Okay.
this is something that can benefit our student body. And since we're doing a budget that's to the benefit of children, I just want to have our administration do the homework because we're asking us not to micromanage. And again, this is my second request. I'm asking the administration to do the homework, bring the information back to the board so that we can have a conversation about how we can benefit our children, especially in areas like Calhoun, the Gilpin Court area. I think it would be extremely beneficial to them to have that type of skill set.
Okay.
So if you could just bring the figures back.
Is there consensus to have this as part of our budget discussion? It's great.
I didn't think that we needed a consensus to do that because everyone else who's brought something forward, it's just been added on and then the board decides.
We haven't added anything on. This document unfortunately has not changed at all because we just haven't given them any feedback yet as to what to take off, what to leave on, what to add or anything.
But we don't even have the figures for the board to even make a decision. So I'm asking can you bring exact
Okay,
figures back to
I'm
the
going to get
council?
consensus to see if this is something we need to attach right now and do during our budget process, or whether we want to have it as a longer-term conversation where we have the numbers, have the lay of the land about how many pools are out there that are offline that need to be brought back online, how many buses or transportation resources do we need to get kids to and from, what does the research say about, is it second grade, is it third grade, is it fourth grade, is it fifth grade?
Can we get the information?
This is a more involved conversation.
But can we just get the information, is what I'm saying,
Yes,
and bring it
sir.
to the committee?
First of all, I think that the responsibility of maintaining and opening pools for Parks and Rec lies with the city. I don't even know that if we got capital money, we could spend it on that legally. I also think that ordering reports from our administration and during this difficult budget time is hard enough, but then to ask the city to produce reports to give to our administration would be almost an impossible task. And I think there are lots of city government agencies that serve our children, social services. I mean, there are lots of things that could be enhanced, but that is not the role of this board.
But we
We've
provide
gotta
those
say-
services to the
Okay.
second
I think
graders.
our focus
And
has
the
to
second
be-
graders in the Calhoun
Just a
Center.
second.
I think our focus has to.
How about if I
remain
just
on-
get the information, I'll bring it back to the board before Monday. I'll take on that responsibility personally. I'll gather the data,
Okay,
I'll have the
great.
conversations, and I'll bring it back for
I
consideration.
think, as you were saying, if we are taking a consensus of whether or not this is something the board wants to do, it may save you some time because.
Well, everyone's
it's
not here, we
something-
have several people that are missing.
We have a
today.
quorum and we can
We
take
have a
action. We
quorum.
have to take votes.
Well,
tonight.
I'm just saying that nothing the board can say can stop me from bringing the information. Because we do serve second graders, there's second graders in the Calhoun Center. So I would hope that no one will be resistant to being able to service the children from that community.
Well, for the record, I'm not interested in understanding what the Parks and Rec budget looks like and what it will cost to bring their pools on.
But I'm sure
I
there
think that's out of our purview.
that are. I'll just bring the information
And I
back
think it's
and
a
we can just
waste
make
of
it
our time
research.
as a
But,
board.
I mean, I just want to make sure that our administration is focusing on what it is the board wants them to focus on, so.
And it's children, it's serving
To
children
the
in
extent,
that
to the extent that you can gather the information independently and not bog down, you know, Ralph and his administrative staff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to call this. As Mr. Westby said, you're scheduled to tell us what you want us to send down next Monday. So there's that outstanding issue. Is it going to be as it is to get a response, or we're going to make changes? The second thing is we received communication that we're getting ready to lose another part of our budget staff February 5th. So even when we send it, we don't have a team pretty much in place to be working on it when that comes back. The lead person is going to be gone. So you receive communication trying to build capacity for us to be able to respond. So we have really outstanding issue of thinking about what to do with what we have. Two is a response to the internal audit, because he had to build that into it, take it out. That would change it. And then third, his request to build capacity in that department so we don't have a vacuum. Which is why you received, which is not a new request, it was there for senior budget analysts. Quite honestly, we don't have capacity, we're still going to run into the same problem people we hired under the director, and the pending retirement from Mr. Westbrook. All of this could happen well before the end of June, and we're gonna be in trouble, because we really don't have a finance department.
So what is the most immediate decision or consensus look you need from us? Is it the audit, is it the, can you give Ralph the go ahead to start building a job description for a senior budget analyst and?
Job description is there, we can't put it on the street unless the board authorizes it for us to go ahead. So the job description is there, effectively we need to approve there to be an actual FTE for that position, because that's fiscal impact on part of the board's responsibility, because it effectively is changing the financials of the district. And then for him to bring to you all closure to what do you really want for the cost of internal audit, because I don't think it's in there.
It's not.
So if you want to put, or you can just say put the $300,000 back into it and just figure it out, you know what I mean? If you don't know what that is.
Ms. Harris-Mahon.
Yes, a couple of things. We're looking for a consensus so we can move forward and advertising that position as soon as tomorrow.
Well, I think that's what Ralph's request is, that, we, approve his building additional capacity so that he can begin to move that, because we need it.
So if we have a consensus, then I won't take up time stating a motion. But I agree with moving forward with that, because it has clearly put a dent in that piece of the department. I'm extremely concerned that with a critical player leaving us, unfortunately, that we're going to get farther behind on some things that we need to do. And, we need highly qualified individuals moving into that spot. So I agree with going ahead and Mr. Westby, thank you for giving me a call again twice today. Apologize, we really couldn't talk, but I do support your request.
And a motion would be in order if you.
I can make a motion.
Just for the record, we have a.
Hold on, wait. Ms. Epps has had her hand up in the appropriate way. Ms. Epps,
Just
why don't you get your motion?
Okay, sure.
quick question regarding this particular position. We would be using some of the funds from, I guess, the internal audit?
Yeah. Could be that was one option.
Okay.
But if you decide to reinstate that and use it and dedicate that to internal audit, then I would recommend we use indirect costs to cover this.
Okay.
My direction to him was that he need to have a plan B and a plan A and B, because the board wants their audit function, but they need to have another funding source.
Okay.
So to cover you all, he has a plan.
Okay.
So it doesn't take away from your concern about your audit.
Okay.
Ms. Taylor.
I guess it would be for legal. We're talking about putting together a motion that relates to the shortfall in our budget.
That's not what this is. It was to advertise, as far as I'm aware. And if I would authorize the administration to post a position for a senior budget analyst, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Okay, so my question, I guess, would be that, would it be okay to do that prior to vacancy in the department?
We've already
You're creating a position. This position does not exist currently, right?
Correct.
So you have to authorize the creation of a FTE position, of an FTE position.
We'd actually be advertising two positions, the director's position plus the senior budget analyst, if you approve it this evening.
And I can advertise hers, but I can't, we want to put them out and get them out to short that department. I can't advertise an FTE that doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's because there's monetary impact I need to bring to you.
Okay, and that's.
Ms. Peggy Epps.
But with the FTE that doesn't exist, this goes back to the questions. Either we're going to do that as an indirect cost, or we're going to do it as part of the swap of the internal audit. Okay, and so should this motion speak to that?
I mean,
For the balance of this year, we can cover with the indirect cost or salary lapse that we've already had with other vacancies. So for the rest of this year, we'll cover.
I think the most immediate concern, if I understood my conversations, beating down from Ralph that I've been taking, is just authorizing the position. I think he said we have some time that they can pay through indirect costs, and then once we make a decision on the audit piece, that will inform that decision.
We're prepared not to cripple you away.
Okay. I'm good. Okay, just a follow-up.
Yes.
Clarity.
Yes.
So this is a new position. We haven't decided as of yet where the funding will come to, just that it won't cripple us to.
Mr. Westbay just said he can cover the rest of the school year, the rest of the fiscal year with indirect costs.
Yeah, but moving forward.
That's part of our, but that will depend in large part on what we do with the audit. If we bring it back in, then I think he's going to have to cover it with indirect costs going forward. I think if we have some vacancy savings by going with an outside vendor for our internal auditor, then I think he could have some of those vacancy savings, or would request some of those vacancy savings to pay for all or some of the costs of the new position.
Okay, I guess I just have some reluctancy with creating a position that we don't have anything truly substantiated moving forward. But if that is the case, my follow-up question would be, can you all put together a report that would include all of the vacancies that we currently have, that we don't have any direct intention or immediate intention of filling, so that we can see kind of what the cushion is with 80% and upwards going to more salaries and benefits?
Yeah.
What does that look like moving forward for this 2017?
I don't think we have any vacancies we're not intending to fill, but we have them, and it's because they're hard to fill or whatever. But we can give you a report saying here are the vacancies we have and the estimated amount of money we're going to accrue this year.
Okay, and we'll be able to have that before Monday?
We can.
Ms. Ashman?
Yes, I would like to make a motion. I move that we allow the administration to advertise the senior budget analyst, a FTE position.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion that's been moved and properly seconded? Ms. Gregg?
Okay, I just wanted to comment on the hard work of Betsy and all of the department, Tommy's department, and I think one of the prevailing themes of all of the folks who courageously came up here tonight and talked about the first district seat spoke about teacher retention and how important that is. And I think that retaining good administrators is equally as important. And I know that your folks have been working weekends, nights, holidays, 70, 80-hour weeks. Tommy's group as well. Tommy's been at, I don't know how many facility meetings thus far, but I think it's important for us as a board to recognize the number of hours that this administration is putting in, and there's a market increase and a lot of requests coming through from us as individuals, and I think we all need to be mindful when we get our new folks in, not to burn them out and push them out the door, because all of our folks have families. They're here to serve us, but they're also here because they want to take care of their families. And I think that moving forward, we need to be very mindful of taking care and cushioning our employees and not overburdening them with our just immediate requests. So that's all.
Ms. Taylor?
I just wanted to just follow up and say that that's very important that we treat all of our staff fairly and appreciate what all of you do. But I just want to say that I think that we can truly have that conversation when the playing field has been leveled and our teachers are at the same pay rate and receiving the same level of benefits that you all receive at the level that you all are in. I think you all do a great job, but I think it's important for us never to forget what our teachers do. When we're having this discussion, we're trying to give access to resources, to reallocations. And when I ask questions like, how is the funding, or how are the FTEs, the level of vacancies, and that money just sits there when it can be shuffled or shifted over to another area, that's what I'm asking you for, not to give you a hard time at all, but I just want to make sure that our students and teachers gain access. And that's what you are here for, that's why we're here to ask those tough questions and get those difficult results that are needed for the benefit of our students. So I do appreciate what you do, but I have to say probably more so appreciate what our teachers do, because they're doing the grind, not just 3 months out of the year, but they're putting in that grind 365 days a year. And I just want all teachers to know how much we truly appreciate you. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the question.
The motion was made by Ms. Harris Mahoney, seconded by Ms. Ray, to allow the administration to advertise the senior budget analyst and FTE position. Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Harris Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Boone? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, is there any other discussion about the spreadsheet and what we would like to add, take off with the budget? Well, we have another meeting where we're scheduled to vote next week. May I implore my colleagues, if you have additions, subtractions, prioritization, please get that to Ralph and his team, the superintendent, by
Preferably Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Close of business.
Wednesday.
Well, tomorrow's
That's tomorrow.
Wednesday. How about Thursday?
Thursday.
We need time to, what we don't want to do is, if we can compile them, let everyone can see them before they walk in, because we can't effectively take something off that Mr. Bourne says, and then y'all don't agree on it.
Well, yeah.
We need to put it all together for you.
Right, we just need to compile them.
We sent you that sheet in its detail with those 80-some items, so you can check right down through them and say what you agree with or don't agree with. It'd be helpful if we got
Thank
that
you.
sheet.
Ms. Larson and Ms. Taylor, I'm sorry, Ms. Larson. Ms. Pinckney Epps had her hand out before I was imploring us to.
And I'm going to be quick.
Okay.
I appreciate you reporting that. Has this budget taken into consideration the discussion of providing transportation for all of our students? Have we looked at what that would cost us? And is it already included? I've been asking that.
Mr. Kranz. The other thing I'll say is that, what was I going to say?
I mean, this question, that would be added costs, so no, it doesn't. The question is, to Tommy, we can figure out the number that it would take to provide transportation to all, to Ms. Epps' original question. So the budget doesn't have it because we're already 2.8 million over.
Okay.
But your question was, how much would it cost?
How much would it cost?
To provide transportation to all VPI pre-K students or all
Everybody.
students? I mean, you would easily, that 2.8 million, it'll be doubled. Our buses right now, a bus costs on an average about $28,000 a year to run. So if we were to do what you're asking us to do, we would have to increase the number of buses.
Okay.
Because we don't have the timeline right now to bring them there in a timely manner, which will significantly increase our costs.
No, right, either.
Well, the drivers, the buses, just fuel, the maintenance. One of the other things it would do is our drivers have gotten used to being able to do midday and after runs in order to make a fairly, some of our drivers have made significant dollar amounts on the salary side. They're doing that based off of his extra hours and being in an overtime. So they're working it. They're not getting paid just to get paid, but they're working it. We bring in that many more drivers, all of a sudden those extra hours get reduced because you got a larger pool you would lower the amount of extra runs that people would have. So that 2.8 million easily would double.
Okay. I asked that question because it's my understanding from the General Assembly that they actually fund, the way that transportation is funded is based on students, our number of students. So my concern is, if we're getting money to transport every last one of our students, why can't we do that?
We don't. I mean, that's why we're running 2.8 million. We run 2.8 million because right now today, 2.8 million above and beyond what we receive in revenue. We do that because of a lot of different reasons. Number one, we transport citywide, not by zone. So the schools that we do the citywide, which are going to be community, Franklin Military, Thomas Jefferson on their IB, Brown Middle School on their IB program, Bedford Middle School, all of those are a considerable amount of money. Okay. Number two, because we run our buses on 3 tiers, if a driver's out sick, then we're running overtime just on normal runs because we're doubling up a bus. So if one driver's out, that means that 6 routes are impacted. And in many cases, one bus can't pick up that additional bus. So then all of a sudden it becomes 2. So then it becomes 12 routes. Then it's 2 drivers that are on overtime. Then when we run the midday runs, which we do for field trips and such, and then the after, where our after-school runs, we're doing groups that are providing extended day care. We provide buses for that. The buses we provide for the athletic programs, because we provide transportation for our children to go home from practice.
Mr. Krantz.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk about it offline.
Thank you. You beat me to the punch, because I think he answered the question about doubling the cost if you transport it for everybody, but getting into the weeds, I think that's an offline conversation.
But does this budget at least include the discussion that we were gonna go to hubs with transportation?
I think we have to make a policy change first.
At this point in time, it does not.
The
But
budget
that's
only encompasses total cost of the, we kept the services as is.
Okay.
They covered the 2.8, we can't keep running at a deficit.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Ms. Larson. Ms. Larson.
Just going back to the auditor discussion for a minute. Some of the questions I have are regarding personnel, so will we have an opportunity to talk about that in closed or offline?
I'm not sure whether we'll have to go back in for personnel. We haven't heard the human resources action yet.
But, so
yes, but
so the greater question is, in regards to making a decision about the budget next week and the audit department being part of that, that's
Yes.
where I have some comments.
Okay. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. 3 questions. Electives, with us getting ready to start the process for creating a master schedule, does this budget include adding on additional subject matters to bring on additional elective courses? And then I think I'll need you for the second one as well.
Yeah, it does. We incorporated that.
Okay. Okay.
And Ms. Taylor, on the budget discussion, you've exceeded the 3 minutes.
I thought it was the first subject.
This is the same subject, we're still on the budget.
So, you have time left?
I was gonna say, do I have any more time left?
2 minutes. Okay, excellent. Part 2, professional development. Have you provided and dissected it?
We were compiling that for you, and we're going to send you a zip file.
Okay, perfect. And then also, finally, I guess, Mr. West Bay, that with the SOQ mandates, as far as who will receive pay raises, the non-SOQ positions, would they still receive the same? And if so, where would the funding for that come from, and where is that in the?
That's in a year 2 of the governor's proposed budget.
Okay.
For the 2%, it's for all covered positions, support and instruction.
So what would the non-covered positions be?
Really, they're all covered.
Okay.
It's just the state doesn't cover all the positions that we have. They don't fund the total number because it's we have more positions than what the foundation program is covering from the state level.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so.
The other point I wanted to make to you was that we did clarify the issue you requested us to about
And you
mandates.
sent the sort of reconfigured, you sent that out with it sort of recategorized?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And additional explanation and justification of why something's a mandate or why it's a service level.
Okay. Again, if you have additional questions or things you want to add, change, please email Ralph and Betsy by Thursday at close of business so that we can consider them at our next meeting. All right. Huh? It to be added officially, yeah, but they're going to compile them and then bring them to discuss it.
So we're ready for you next Monday.
Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Next item is item 8, your board actions, 8.01, receive for action budget transfers.
Good evening. There is one budget transfer that requires approval. And I believe there might have been a page missing from the scanned document that has the details. There was a transfer in the amount of $328,000 to cover student transportation expenditures, contracted services for exceptional ed. That's just one of the deficit areas that we will be getting. More will be coming. But this is a document that gives the details of where those funds are coming from. Thank you. Then there were 3 transfers that are just for your information.
Are there any questions on the ones that we need to approve? Yes, that's the only one we have to approve.
The others are for your information.
Ms. Larson.
I move that we approve the budget transfers.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. We're now in the discussion phase of this process. Is there any discussion? Ms. Epps.
This transportation that's needed for exceptional education, it is outside of the normal transportation budget.
Correct. It's outside of what our bus drivers provide.
It's outside. I need it to be broken down a little bit. How did we get to this $328,000 figure? I guess my concern is that I'm hearing from parents that they're facing some difficulty even getting transportation for their children. And so how is it that we need some more money for transportation if everybody's not already getting transportation?
So Ms. Epps, this is for the students students with disabilities who attend private day schools. So we have a contracted provider. Yes, you do it now.
Keep going.
We have a contracted provider that transports our students. So if you remember last year on our budget, there were some funds that couldn't be supported. So we kind of making do with what we had that we said up front that we would be coming back because we wouldn't have enough to sustain us. So remember, transportation and purchase services were 2 of those big pockets where we were going to be coming back. So we worked and worked and worked and squeezed. We couldn't squeeze anymore, but we have to make sure that the students get transported to school every day. So they may be going to various places from located in Henrico, located in Richmond, but they're not going to our regular RPS schools.
And these transportation costs are outside of any costs that we're paying to have them placed.
Correct.
And these, okay. Okay.
Ms. Taylor.
Question 1 is, where's it being transferred from?
There are various salary and benefit lines. There was a document that just was passed around. It's for the positions or budget lines were identified where we have turnover savings and or partial year vacancy. These will be salary and benefit line items that we will not expend this year or that we project as surplus. Yeah.
I guess I just have to concur with doesn't seem to be that level of specificity that would help me with the decision.
Ms. Hampshire, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, follow-up. The attendance, do we get an attendance report on whether or not those children, are they showing up to school?
So yes, our FACE office still works with attendance because they're still RPS students even though they're attending other schools. But even if they decide to miss a day, we still have to make available that transportation because that's connected to their services in our IEP.
Okay, but are we getting a report on their attendance in addition to the report that we're getting from attendance regularly?
No, those students are not included. We can provide that for you if you're interested in that. So we'll continue to send it as long as the students stay on our roster. So if they don't miss 15 consecutive days, even if they're absent 14, we're still going to be sending a bus because they're still an RPS student. When they get dropped, then that's different.
And that's my concern, that we may be sending a bus for children who aren't getting on it, and we're paying for seats that they're not sitting in. So I'd be interested in seeing what those numbers look like.
And just so that you would know, and certainly if that's the board's desire, we can do that, but unfortunately, even if they just make that one day, we still have to do that, or we'll be out of compliance. So that I understand your concern.
Ms. Taylor?
Do you have anything that gives any specificity to this coding that's here so that we'll know?
I could certainly provide you something that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Any other discussion or questions about this budget transfer? It has been moved and properly seconded, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Ms. Larson made the motion and seconded by Ms. Harris Muhammad to approve this budget transfers. Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yeah.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney?
No.
Ms. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.
Next item on the
The
agenda?
next item on the agenda is 8.02, receive update recommendation for action regarding synergistic.
If you recall, we previously had brought up about Synergistic. Synergistic is a company that's been in business about 25 years. They currently serve 1,350 districts here in the United States. Their basic program is through energy management. They believe that they can save for the district approximately $1.2 million per year. That savings is split 50-50 with the district getting a portion of it and Synergistics getting the remainder. So in essence, the savings we pay for anything we pay to Synergistic, there's a guarantee, and that there's no money paid to Synergistics unless there are the true savings that would take place within the utility program. In light of the budget and the challenges we have, in addition to transportation being over budget, utilities are over budget, and historically have been over budget for the district. And utilities are the utilities. And that was one of the droughts that said the structural deficit that was built into the budget process. This would give a means by which we have to address that deficit, and also give a means to take those dollars and reinvest it wherever the need may be. So with that said, I'd like to give Larry Price, who's here from Synergistics, just a couple minutes to address y'all.
Good evening. Good to see you all again. It's a pleasure being here. And as you know, and hearing what Mr. Panza said, our company is a company that saves school districts money by reducing their energy consumption. Primarily consumption where energy doesn't have to be being used. So it's not a discomfort program. It's not something that negatively affects the environment of schools. But we look for where energy can be saved where it doesn't have to be being used. We've been successful in doing this all over the country. We have a number of clients right here in Virginia. Our most recent client is Fairfax County, of course one of the largest in the country. But we are certain that there's significant savings. I think over the 5 years of our contracts, an average of about $700,000 in net savings. We pay for the program. There's no risk on you. You don't have any chance of losing any money on our program, but you have a chance of reducing your energy consumption and saving some money that you can use in a better place. And having sat back, listening to this conversation, which is not unlike other school board conversations around the budget, this is a great way of reclaiming some money that won't negatively impact what you're doing. We're going to put 2 of our employees in your district that would work every day looking for where those energy savings opportunities are. Plus, we support them with a great level of expertise with about 50 engineers and consultants who work to help make sure your equipment is running as it's supposed to be running, and make sure that we're finding those places where energy can be saved, where it doesn't have to be any use. It's a fantastic program. I vetted it very well before I started working with this company 3 years ago, and they do what they say they're going to do, and so it's a great opportunity, and so I appreciate your reconsideration of this. But again, I think it helps you in a way that will help you address some of the things that you were talking about earlier.
Are there any questions for Mr. Krantz or synergistic? Ms. Harris-Mohammed?
I do. Thank you so much for coming back to present to us again. I remember the last time we had this presentation, we were at Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, and I had a concern about not having information from the other districts that you all serve. This is a chunk of money for a license for the first 3 years, and I know that it reduces its amount after the first 3 years. But I am not comfortable supporting something of this magnitude when I don't have evidence, when I don't have information from other districts to say this is what they saved and how they saved. That has always been my concern. So until I get that, until I get something indicating that a district that is comparable to us in student population, schools, and the savings, excuse me, what they have saved, I'm just not ready to go out on a limb and say yes to this until I receive that information.
So the software is the means by which you and I both know how much money we've saved you. It is an energy cap, it's a software, it's a third party software. It's not ours, it's not our own home cooking, it's another, it belongs to another company and you're the licensee for that. So it's not ours. But it is the measurement and verification software that keeps everybody honest and calculates the savings that are had.
Okay.
Then the district, someone in the district, a program liaison, and someone in the company signs off. They agree that the savings have been there based on what the software produces. Prince William County is one of our clients. They've saved over $13 million with our program. Hampton City, and we'll be there tomorrow night delivering an award to them. And I can't remember the number right off, but they have saved about 19% on their energy in the 2 years that they've been a part of our program. And that's just right at the top of my head, just a couple that are right here in Virginia. Fairfax has been in for about 18 months. They've saved over $5 million with our program. And I mean, again, I can provide you all the data that you need, but there's just 3 real clear examples right here that are, part of your sister school divisions here that indeed are getting what we said that they would get. 98% of our clients exceed our projections for them by the end of year 2. So it's like almost everybody does even better than we projected they will do. We try to project low, under promise and over deliver is our mode of operation. So again, just plenty of opportunities. I just throw those 3 right off the top of my head that are some that you would know specifically about.
I would like to know, and if Mr. Westbay could just be kind of listening a little bit, where would this money be coming from? Where would the annual license fee be? What line item about?
It all comes from your energy savings. There's no new money to budget. We save the money and we share those savings. The software gets paid for out of those savings. So there's nothing new to budget. It's all from the savings. All this money now is going to utility providers today. And so it's reducing consumption, which reduces your costs, which then leaves money left in that budget line for utilities from where you have to pay for the software and to share the savings. So there's no new money to budget.
I do have a question, Ms. Ward, for
That's great.
Mr. Krantz. And could we save some money if we go ahead and turn the lights off over at Elkhorn?
I noticed that this evening over at, it's beyond, the emergency lights, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I noticed that this evening when I was gone.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Ms. Gray, and Ms. Taylor.
Huh?
Well, I just want to say, and I've met with Synergistics representative, I'm a strong proponent of these programs. I just think at this stage in our facilities planning, it would be putting the wagon before the horse. I think we have to do some school consolidations, take some of our less efficient buildings offline. I think there's lots to be done. I think there's also the energy efficiency contracts that we're looking at, hopefully implementing. So, you know, I just think that the timing of it does not put me at ease, and I think I would rather wait until we got some of those other things out of the way.
Can I respond? So at the base of a pyramid, conservation of energy is the first thing you ought to be doing, no matter what else you're going to be doing. Turning it off, turning it back, not running it as much is the base that you ought to be using. And every situation you just described will be adjusted out of that when the time comes. But the reality is we've got a lot of other schools that are still using energy and still using energy they don't have to use. You'll never get to a place where everything that you can think of that could be done will get done, so that you could then say, oh, now let's start conserving. Conservation should be first. Besides that, our company has a great level of expertise that we provide to our clients to help you as you do those things that you just mentioned. And they come as a part of our program. It's not extra. It's not an upcharge. And so the timing, we talk about it in the energy conservation world, time is money. And so every day that passes that you don't have a conservation program, you're spending money that you don't have to spend.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. I guess maybe this may be for you, Mr. Krantz. I remember the initial conversation, including some calls, I don't know if it was for staffing at the buildings or something. Am I not recollecting correctly?
Well, the cost would be, the way that program works, there's the energy cap software. And as Dr. Price said, that would belong to the district. We would be the licensee of that software. It wouldn't be Synergistics. Number two, the two people that Synergistics provides as energy specialists, I don't know their exact term, but it's basically that. That's correct. They are paid from the monies that we pay to Synergistics. So if we say, let's just say it's $1.2 million, we get 600, he gets 600, the cost of the two people are taken out of their $600,000, not out of what the $1.2 million, or out of what our piece of the pie is.
Okay, so we would just only solely have the licensing on the front end.
Correct. And in essence, the licensing theoretically gets paid from the savings that are generated, but the software is owned by, I want to say, the software is owned by the district. Okay. We're the licensee.
Okay.
Okay.
So after that cost moving forward, once we've collected all of the savings that we can possibly gain from it, then we would relinquish the license, or would that be?
No, ma'am. In 5 years, theoretically, the way their program works, it's a 5.5-year program. The first 6 months are building the database. Then in the next 5 years is where you're instituting the conservation measures, generating the savings. In 5 years, the Synergistics team leaves, and you can continue those conservation programs you've got. So then that $1.2 million becomes 100% of the district. And as Dr. Price mentioned on, some of their clients that have been there long term, they're in that category where they've already been through the 5-year period and they're recouping 100% of the savings.
Okay, and then lastly, this whole process, is this something that has or will need to go through the procurement process for bidding, or is there something that
There's multiple districts here in the state of Virginia that would allow us to cooperatively tag onto their purchasing. Fairfax, Hampton, Prince William. I mean, there's numerous districts inside the state of Virginia that we could cooperatively tag onto.
Okay. So that would mean that it wouldn't require us to go
No, ma'am.
through that. But are there any competitors that do the same thing that you all do?
Hardly any. Most RFPs that we have in regards to the state that we're in, there are no additional companies, or there might be small companies that do pieces of what we do, but no one does the full kind of program that we do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Is there, we need a motion for this?
If you want to approve it, you can, you can.
I'd like to approve it. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this partnership, or what do you call it, that we entertain synergistic coming into our district to assist us with conservation.
So basically adopt the administration's recommendation,
Yes.
approve the administration's recommendation. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Can I give it just for the run?
The motion fails for lack of a second. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
The next item on the agenda is 8.03 to approve the Human Resources actions.
Mr. Billups, I know you've been waiting for your turn.
Okay, good evening, school board members. The HR actions for tonight include actions for approval, which are the nomination of 8 employees, the change of contract for 10 employees, and the transfer of 1 employee. Actions for information include the retirement of 7 employees, the resignation of 10 employees, the name change of 3 employees, and the reappointment of 1 employee. In addition, there's an addendum, some addendum items tonight, which include an additional change of contract, as well as 2 additional resignations.
Are there questions about the HR agenda or the addendum that need to be discussed and closed? Of course, there are.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is 8.04, receive for action school board travel and district activity requests. Those requests were on board docs for your review. At the request, there is a request from Mrs. Taylor to attend the NSBA conference in Boston, an estimated cost of $2,089.20. There is a request from Mr. Coleman. Okay. Request from Mr. Coleman to participate in the LMR Speaker Series. The dates are January 14th, February 9th, and March 15th. And a request from Dr. Jones for a 8-district newsletter for $150. And a request, I received an email from Mr. Sturman and Mrs. Harris-Muhammad before he left that he was donating thank you, $275 for the Teacher of the Year. Teacher Appreciation Dance. And Mrs. McNabb says withdrawing her request.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Correct, Ms. Taylor, then. You got a question, or? Please.
No, I sent you the paper for the share out. Once you completed it.
That's good.
I sent it to you. You didn't get your email because then we talked about it, so you don't have it.
No, I've been waiting on it. Yeah.
I didn't get a request to print it out. Did you email that to me?
No, I just went.
Okay. You got a question on?
I just need to request it.
For a district activity or travel?
I would like to buy a huge banner for Carver Elementary. And I think you were gonna make.
Yeah, I got information for you.
Okay.
Ms. Epps?
The discussion on this, the series, the speaker series that Mr. Coleman wants to attend, one of those dates has already passed, so has he already attended?
He was registered and he will have in the past, at least once, I do believe, reimbursed the government for something after that.
And I think it's.
And this
we
is a
pay for the
series, right, we are paying for the series.
I mean, we have done it in the past. If we want, if there's enough of us to approve it or not approve it.
Okay, my only concern is that, yes, we've done it in the past, but it's my understanding, moving forward, we had to be within that 21 days. So I just want us to be mindful.
Thank you for the reminder. Any other questions regarding the district activity plans? Ms. Gray?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think we should pay for the last two in the series. I just totally disapprove that program.
Okay. The NSBA conference, Ms. Epps is does the $2,000 include the airfare and everything?
It is just an estimate, but yes, it does include the airfare, it includes lodging, registration. We would have to double check to see what meals are included in that, and if there are none, the per diem has not been included in this.
And the per diem comes out of the travel?
Yes.
And is there enough money to cover the whole trip in your line item?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
It took me some time to registration closes, I think, in a couple of weeks or not that far.
Okay.
So it's simple enough.
Just a question. The situation for the airfare, the estimate that comes back to the
We do not, because what you are giving is just an estimate, but what we do is actually look at travel offices to try to get the best that we could get the
Any other questions on district activity funds?
Just a point of discussion that maybe we can have another day. We go through Travelocity. Could this board maybe look at working with other entities for some cost savings? We, we partner with maybe a travel agency or something. Just piece of discussion.
Frank, do you have any information from the meeting that you all went to about a travel agent? Was it?
Let's talk about that at another meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Gray.
This doesn't add up on the form that was submitted. The total cost is not reflective of the cost here. It says the airplane is $128.20.
If that's my estimate, just my, it's correct.
Is it 1128 and the registration fee is 1135?
No, that airfare was the estimate that we saw when we went on Travelocity.
$128.
I can double check.
That's correct.
Round trip to Boston.
You just go to JetBlue, okay, very, all right.
It's a straight, I was gonna say straight strap, but, what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say.
Too soon, though.
We need to have some people going in school suspension. And the audience.
Are there any other questions?
So it's realistic to expect a round trip flight to Boston from Richmond?
When we checked last week, that was the estimate the lowest estimate that we saw.
$128.
Yeah, it's not that expensive.
Hold on, get you a quote.
Are there any other questions? Is there a motion, is there?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the district activity request for Ms. Taylor, Mr. Coleman, Dr. Jones, and Mr. Sturgis transfer part of the donation to the Teacher Appreciation Days. Any discussion on these? Any more discussion? Call the question, Madam Clerk, please.
The motion was made by Mrs. Taylor, seconded by Mrs. Pinckney to approve for travel. Mrs. Gray?
No.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Boone?
Yes.
Motion passes 5.
Next item.
Next item is item 9, the consent agenda, and 9.01 is to approve the minutes of your January 4th and January the 11th, 2016 minutes.
So moved.
It's been moved that we approve. Second. No discussion? Okay.
The motion was made by Ms. Harris Muhammad, seconded by Ms. Gray to approve the minutes. Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney?
No.
Mrs. Larson? Ms. Boone?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.
Next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda are your other informational items, and they are the financial statement for the month ended December 31st, 2015, and the quarterly financial statements for Patrick Henry School of Science and Arts. Those are just other information.
Okay, y'all good?
Yep. Don't get up. You may have to stay up.
All right. Who has the close?
Pursuant to the Personnel Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, I move that the school board of the City of Richmond convene in closed session to discuss prospective candidates for employment and the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers or employees of the division, including consideration of the human resources agenda of this date, school board employee performance and contract and employee matters 151650, 151651, and 151652.
Motion made by Ms. Harris Mahoney, seconded by Ms. Gray. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
We're now closed. Let's get 5 minutes, we can get out of here, but we don't have to be here all night.